across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello there, and a very good evening to you. This is Talk, and it is Petrie here with you now until 1 o'clock. And coming up, of course, at midnight, it is a full hour of phone-in. It is your chance to talk back. And I do want to talk to you about housing and the housing situation in this country. Just a few days ago, Sir Keir Starmer insisted that there was lots of housing available to accommodate both the rising numbers of homeless people and asylum seekers. Huh? Now, I think we all heard him say that, and I've been discussing housing and the housing shortage for decades, and it certainly is a crisis in this country. There has absolutely not been enough houses built, but this isn't even political. They've all failed. They've all failed to build enough housing. So what is he talking about? He was unable to say, of course, specifically where this extra housing would be and where he could find it. The fact that there are so many migrants now wanting or needing these properties means that there's a shortage of properties. That puts pressure on property prices, and that, of course, puts rents higher. It's simple cause and effect. It's simple rarity value. That's the issue. And then you've got rents. Rentals at the moment are absolutely outrageous. I don't know how anyone can afford to even begin to rent in most areas of this country. I've got statistics here that show that for 1 in 5 people, half of their income goes on just on rent. Half of their entire income goes on rent, and I know that's true for my son and his girlfriend. And it is an absolute disgrace how expensive. They've gone up £221 on average per month. So that's £2,500 a year. How does anybody afford to live in this country? So that's what I want to talk about at midnight, and I want to test this comment that they're going to build affordable homes. What does that even mean? I mean, affordable rents, it's still 80% of the full 100% rental. That's still way too high. But affordable to buy? Are you kidding me? So I want to hear from you. What is truly affordable to you? Because my belief is that the only really affordable housing in this country that's available or should be available is social housing. It's the only thing that is truly affordable and that you won't get kicked out of. So I want to examine your housing situation, what it's like, what kind of housing would you prioritise if you were in charge of building, and do you think that Labour is really going to have a snowball's chance in hell of building the 1.5 million homes that they've promised to build by the end of the Parliament? It is just not going to happen. It is absolutely laughable. It's not going to happen. And what kind of properties are they building? And how are they affordable to most of us? That's the question. So I want to know from you, what is truly affordable to you, taking into account your income, your outgoings, all of those things. You don't have to tell me things like that, but it'd be interesting to know what you genuinely think would be affordable compared to your incomes. And do you think you will ever be a homeowner? Do you think that's ever on the cards for you? And what kind of housing would you prioritise if you were in charge of building? Give me a call, let me know, 0344 499 1000. You can message me as well, 87222. You put the word talk up front, that comes through to the studio. And you can WhatsApp as well on 0344 499 1000. So that's all coming up at midnight. Before that, let me tell you who's coming in to do our papers is Ed Wiseman the wise man that is Ed, transport and travel journalist. He will be here. We're also heading off to the Stars to chat with Andy Lound. And Vanessa Damrosio, our sports reporter, will be here in the studio to talk us through some of the news from the weekend. And of course, the Lionesses just defends that Euro title to that extraordinary win. So that's what's coming up. But first, let's turn our attention to the housing crisis. According to the property portal Zoopla, the monthly cost of renting a home in the UK, like I said, has risen by £221 per month. Outrageous. And is Starmer right? Is he right to say there is enough property to go around? And how is that building target going? And what can be done about private rents? It seems nothing. It seems that we are stuck in this loop of ever increasing housing costs in this country. And then they wonder why people aren't having babies. They wonder, I wonder what could be causing that people don't want to have kids. I mean, I think it's fairly obvious, isn't it, to everybody? Let's talk now to Gareth Fern, who is Leverhulme Fellow at the University of Manchester. Good to speak to you, Gareth. Thank you very much indeed for joining me. How have we got ourselves into this crisis of housing?
Thank you for having me. I think it's been quite a sort of long building process that's obviously getting worse and worse and has got worse in the last sort of 10 or 15 years. You can go really right back to the 1980s if you want to and say the sort of killing of social housing, which happened under the Thatcher government in terms of both introducing right to buy and cutting local authorities' ability to borrow and spend and replace the housing that was sold. And ever since then, we've had a really low levels of social housing being built. I think we have 1.5 million less social homes now than we did since 1980. And obviously we have more people living in this country, right? So, yeah, I think that's a key reason why we've got high pressure on both house prices and also on rents in particular. I think we also have a sort of housing market which it's not just individual or families trying to buy housing, right? It's international investors. You've got buy to rent. You've got 5 or 6 different kind of types of housing, different types of investors, all of whom can get a lot more credit than an average family to buy a house.
Yeah.
So all of these things driving up prices. And I guess the social housing mixed in with other failures has meant that we also just haven't been producing the levels of housing that we need, whether that's refurbishing other buildings or whether that's building new, right? And that's just been the case for probably decades, and certainly in the last 10 or 15 years.
But why hasn't this been treated as the crisis that it genuinely is? I mean, if you don't have a roof on your head, if you don't have that stability and security and safety, everything else falls away, right? Society just falls away. It is a fundamental human requirement to have a roof over your head, a stable roof, a roof that can't be taken away from you at the whim of a private landlord or costs going up beyond your reach. This genuinely is, I think, more of a crisis than even the NHS.
Yeah, well, I guess probably the reason why that is not treated quite as seriously is because through this period of we've had obviously recently more increasing homelessness, rough sleeping, increasing people struggling with either paying their rent or paying huge amounts of their income out in their rent. The flip side of that is that there have been winners from that situation, right? People who already owned their homes, right, and have owned their homes and paid off their mortgages, their property values keep going up, so they're quite happy. And additionally, landlords, whether they be small landlords or big corporate landlords, right, they're benefiting from the situation, right, at the same time as other people are losing out. So I guess to some extent, successive governments have been more interested in their interest than they have perhaps in lower income people who are really struggling with housing. And I think maybe now we're getting to a point, and maybe Labour, probably have recognised that as they come into government, that this is one of the biggest problems of our time, if not the biggest, domestically. And that's why they're trying to take some measures to address it, but the scale of the problem has grown, I think, so much in the last 10 or 15 years. It's going to take a very long time for them to be able to kind of dig us out of this hole that we've got into.
The other thing is, again, if I were running the country, I would be looking at some of the major problems that are facing us at the moment, and that is brain drain of people that we've paid to train choosing to leave because of again, probably housing is a big issue for that. It's too expensive. You've got situations where people can't hold down a job, the stress, the mental health issues. All of these things seem to me to would be not solved overnight, but would certainly go a long way to helping those people with mental health issues, stresses, all of those things, if only they had a reliable roof over their heads. You're talking about, we've got a growing ageing population. There's not enough children being born. You ask young people why that is, they can't afford it. They can't even imagine being able to buy a home or rent a home that they could afford and have children in without both parents having to work all the time. It seems to me that a lot of things in this country, including pressure on the NHS, including pressure on social services, it could be alleviated if there was a proper home building programme.
Yeah, I think that's completely right. I think housing is at the root of both people's like insecurities, but then also like even just things like spending in like local shops and things like this, right? People just have less money to spend. And I think you touched upon it in your intro. I think there's like two things that you can kind of do, right? The first one, as you kind of talked about, is like social housing program. Like the sort of government so far have talked about building maybe 180,000 in 10 years. And I think really we need to be looking at something like 100,000 a year. That's, I think, Shelter called for 90,000. Like that's the kind of levels we need to be looking at. We haven't been doing that in the UK for a very long time. Probably not since like the early 80s, late 1970s. And then perhaps at the same time now we need to think about something like some sort of measure to like stabilise rents on at least on like an annual basis, right? Like capping rent increases at a certain level. It could be inflation. It could be a set percentage. Labour again in their recent like renters reform bill I kind of have done the weakest possible version of that, and it involves tribunals, and I think it's going to be very difficult to actually make it work. So yeah, again, I think that's the sort of situation, particularly in the big cities like London and Manchester and stuff. I think we need to have a set like rent cap in terms of increasing the year rent stabilisation or rent control, whatever you want to call it. But say tied to inflation or tied to another, a certain amount each year, because you quoted like, if you just let people's rents keep going up by 10% or whatever each year, that's just not sustainable. And I think that needs to be combined with the development of social housing, right? So you can have a sort of immediate impact at the same time as sort of trying to do the longer term work of actually building the housing people need.
Like you say, though, it is, you just follow the money. There's an awful lot of builders or of estates that are making these huge rents as well. It's not just the mum and dad with a couple of properties. It is huge businesses which all lobby the government. But this is a Labour government. Would you have hoped for better from a Labour government?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I think it seems like the sort of, the cold sort of dead hand of the Treasury is kind of weighed in once again, like it does in so many other matters. And I think there's probably some people in Labour, both in the, even in the cabinet perhaps, who would like to see more done and kind of recognise that the scale of the problem requires both more in terms of spending and in terms of reforms. But I think certainly the spending has been curtailed. And when you look at, like I say, the numbers of social housing they're planning to build and the amount of money they're putting behind it, it seems incredibly weak. So yeah, they've kind of come in and realised there's a huge problem. They've made some changes that go some way to addressing it. And I think part of it does also come down to the fact the last government was so bad in relation to housing that like this problem has built up and has become so big. So I do have a little bit of sympathy for them in that the scale of the problem is massive. But I think they've recognised that, and at the same time are relying very heavily on things like planning reforms and things like that to deliver housing, when we're at a moment now where the big volume house builders just aren't building housing because interest rates are high and they don't perceive like the demand to be there.
And they're land banking as well, which shouldn't be allowed either. That brings me really, Gareth, to the type of housing that is being built, and this phrase that I hate with a passion is affordable housing, because you just go, well, affordable to who? Affordable to who? Because my son and his girlfriend, they're both workers, they're both working hard. There's nothing they could afford in London, nothing that they could afford in London. So I hate the term affordable housing because I don't know what it means. I don't think the government knows what it means.
Yeah. Yeah, particularly in London, and also probably also to some extent it's true in Manchester as well. That
Yeah.
yeah, benching it at sort of benchmarking something at 80% of the market rate, which obviously changes all the time, I don't think is particularly helpful or useful, and is kind of a bit of a confusing definition. And I think it makes more sense to think about housing in relation to people's incomes, right? You
Yeah.
know, that core problem we have is that houses are now roughly average house price is about 8 times the average income. It used to be for most of the 20th century, it was about 4 to 1 outside of a major
Yeah.
crisis, right? So, um, yeah, to sort of move the dial on that, we're going to need a bit more than like 80% of market rate, almost by definition.
Yeah, how,
Like,
how does that
unless,
make it affordable? I mean, and that's what they're talking about, affordable rents as well, 80% of market value, when already these rents are so high that there's a good deal of people who are spending half of their income, if not more, just on keeping that roof over their head.
yeah. Yeah, and also I think a lot of the time with affordable housing, it's often done through like negotiations with developers, or it's done through like almost like often like a subsidy basically to developers, and it's just I guess it's a way of them, almost like trying to look like you're doing something. And like as I think you mentioned in the beginning of the program, like the only real way you're going to like start really affecting this problem, particularly with regards to homelessness, right? Because when we talk about homelessness, like most people who are becoming homeless, sorry, are like getting forced out of private rental accommodation in the first place, right? Whether
Mm.
that's deemed or not, whatever, they're getting forced out of that, and then they go to the council, and the council can't do anything because they don't have anything. They don't have the stocks of housing that they could use to put people, whether it be temporarily or on a longer term basis, right? So, like, if you're talking about homelessness, that's like such a core issue. And also just in terms of bringing down rents in general and keeping rents and having this like alternative for people to go to so they can turn around to private landlords and say, well, okay, I'm just going to go to public housing instead. If you're going to
Yeah,
try and...
exactly. But the trouble is that there is no competition in this market, is there? That's the problem. There is no, you either pay the rent or you move back home with your parents at 32 years old, or whatever it might be. It doesn't seem to be that there's any leeway for people at all, and there's no way for them to their social contract is gone. I mean, I can't blame young people saying, well, why should I bother going to work? I'm never going to be able to own anything. I'm never going to be able to afford to have kids. What's the problem? Why should I bother engaging in society?
Yeah, but I guess the sort of the bigger picture political problem with that is that, and this has been the case for successive governments, right? It's not just this government. Is that, as I mentioned before, like there are people who've done very well out of sort of house price inflation, basically, and it's going to be a brave government that wants to take that on, right? Because you're going to have to say to people who have amassed a lot of wealth through housing. I'm not talking about someone who owns like a small house or something. I'm talking about a lot of people, I guess middle class people who've amassed quite a bit of wealth through housing. You're gonna maybe have to turn around to them and say, well, your house values aren't going to go up by as much. That's the thing that every government's scared of doing,
Yeah.
isn't it? Realistically, that's what they're worried about taking on, because people who own homes tend to vote more and tend to have more sort of participation in politics. So they're worried about, and I think that's what Labour are trying to do when you see the kind of modest changes that they've done, or the perhaps not as substantial with not they don't quite meet the kind of scale of the problem. Is that I think they're trying to kind of toe a line between producing a bit more social housing, trying to get a bit more house building in certain areas, maybe around London, that kind of thing, trying to get that going at the same time as not rocking the boat too much in terms of the housing market, right, and keeping houses prices going up by at least a few percent each year. And I can't definitely say and tell you the answer to that, but it seems to me that like something's going to have to give there at some point. Like,
Yeah, but it'll have to. Something
going to have to be
will.
some redistribution of wealth in that regard. Like
Yeah.
it can't be this.
Yeah, it's not sustainable, is it really? But what about this measure that Labour have given themselves, this 1.5 million homes by the end of this Parliament?
Yeah, I don't think anyone thinks that's going to happen.
It's never going to happen, is it? They'll be lucky to get 300,000 built by then.
I think, I mean, if you were to give them like a fairer test, or like, they gave themselves that test, but if you want to give them like a different test, it would be like, can they get to a sort of rate and a mixture of tenure by the end of the Parliament, right? You could say, could they be building, say, 300,000 homes and 100,000 of them social housing? If they could do something like that, that would be incredible. And yeah, maybe they don't build 1.5 million homes in 4 years, but can they get to something like that where they're building the right tenures in the right places? At a sort of scale that's required, like that would be a test that I would like to see them meet. I mean, I don't think they're going to do that either, Like 1.5 million in this time was always going to be difficult.
It was never going to happen. I just don't know why they even set that as a goal to fail. But again, it depends on what they're building, right? Because there is a huge demand for 1 and 2 bedroom flats, for example. They seem to get forgotten. This is so that older people can live on their own if they prefer to, and younger people can get on the housing ladder with that smaller property. But it always seems to be houses that they're building, which pushes those people out, out of the market.
Yeah, in general, I mean, yeah, and particularly the large-scale house builders, they have like a particular pattern and type that they like to build. They like to build on sort of often agricultural land because it's cheaper. So that's where they like to build on the edge of cities, on like peripheries of towns and stuff, because that's just like the easiest way for them to kind of maximize their profits, basically. And they've settled on this model about 20, 30 years ago, and they've been nailing it ever since, basically. So, yeah, like if without like government intervention, that's what's just gonna keep happening. And maybe they'll build a bit more than they were doing a few years ago, like that might happen, but I think without a more deliberate government intervention, and there is some promise for that when they're talking about things like new towns, development corporations, they could do that, but that's a very long-term kind of process. But something like that where you're actually connecting infrastructure with new housing, integrating flats as well as like larger houses together, like this is what happened in the 70s and the 60s. Like these things are possible, and that's, again, it's a longer-term measure, but there is some promise there in what they've said. They've not fully fleshed that out yet, but so there is some hope there that maybe they could use that as a means of both, types of tenure and types of size of housing and things like flats and things like this. But yeah, I think most flats they're getting built these days are obviously usually like built to rent, right? So they're rent in perpetuity.
Yeah,
usually.
Exactly. And the other thing is as well is the way that builders can really bend how they achieve the numbers that they're required to achieve. There was a housing thing being built not far from me in Shepherd's Bush that was supposed to have 10% social housing. There was no social housing on that site, and the builder chose to put their 10% social housing somewhere outside of the M25. And they were allowed to do that. They were required to provide 10% social housing. We all believed that it was meant to be in that build, but no, they put it somewhere cheaper. Yeah,
and I think this is a story, and this is something I've written about, I guess, quite a lot myself, is that the government wants to change planning rules, but one of the big problems that we've had, and this relates to social housing too, is the cuts to local government, right? So local government departments, not only have they had like 50% cuts to planning in their housing departments, they have the right to buy, which, to be fair, Labour are promising to change. But their sort of lack of funding, lack of resources, depletion of like staff, skilled like people who've worked there for years and stuff, leaving often to go to the private sector, sometimes even to go and work for the volume house builders or their consultants. Like that comes with like a lack of enforcement often, or like a lack of monitoring and all these kind of things. It becomes very hard for like an authority to actually check, if they even want to, that these things are, with the conditions that they put in place or whatever are actually happening. So yeah, I mean, another part of the story probably is also making sure local government in general is funded, and particularly like planning and housing departments actually have the resources they need to both develop housing, but also like develop housing that's actually a sort of a community, basically.
Yeah, fair and reasonable for that's what they promise the community, and then they go and do something really underhand, and get away with it because they're big business. Gareth, good to talk to you. I'm sure we'll speak again on this issue because, as we've both agreed, it is a crisis. Gareth Fern there, Leverhulme Fellow at the University of Manchester. Quick break, back in a sec.
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello there. Yep, this is Talk, and it's Petrie here with you. And we're discussing at the moment basically the cost of housing in this country and the pressures that are put on sort of social housing or affordable housing, and the fact that that leaves you and millions of people in a real problem with rent, with housing, you know, with rentals as well. You've just got to lose your job or have a situation where you might be laid off for a month. And then it all falls apart, right? It just all goes away. If you can't afford your rent on a month, then you're playing catch up, and everything is a disaster. And that's why they say that every single one of us is 5 weeks away from being homeless. It is that tight for most people in this country. So when Keir Starmer says, oh, there's enough housing around for all the immigrants and for all the British people, it's fine, there's not a problem. I don't know what he's talking about. I don't know where he's been. I don't know who he's listening to. It is absolutely objectively not true. And it's obvious to the rest of us who live in this world, who live in this country. Rentals are backbreaking. They are disgusting. And the fact that you have to come up with a full deposit and a month's rent every time you move before getting your deposit back from the last person, you know, how does anybody afford that? How is anybody able to afford to move? I cannot believe it. I just can't understand it. You know, if it wasn't for me being able to help my son and his girlfriend out in getting those deposits every time they move, you know, lending them a deposit, giving them the first month's rent so that they can save enough to have the first month's rent because I mean, it's just a joke. If it wasn't for me, I think they would be homeless, or they'd be living with me. So it's all of that comes into play as well. And I just don't think anybody in Keir Starmer's cabinet ever talks to anybody in the real world about what's going on with housing and with rental. I don't know how anybody does it. Listen, I want to hear from you as to, we keep hearing this term, affordable housing. Very few people examine that. What the hell does affordable mean? Who is it affordable to? Is affordable housing affordable? No. No is the answer to that. It's not. It isn't. So I want to know, what is affordable to you? And do you ever see yourself being in a position where you could own a property, where you could get a mortgage and own a property? That goes for younger people, older people. Have you given up on the idea if you're older? Are you worried as you go into your pension age about having to continue to pay rent, that might become unaffordable for you, being on a fixed income of your pension? What do we do about this? It is an absolute crisis. I think this ties into almost every aspect of somebody's life: mental health conditions, physical health conditions, everything. It's all basically to do with needing good housing. And we're not doing it. Nobody wants to talk about it, really. It's like, oh, well, you know, they can just rent in the private sector. Well, yeah, look how well that's working out. So that's what I want to talk about at midnight. Give me a call, 0344 499 1000. What is affordable to you?
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This.
Hello there. Yes, this is Talk, and it is Petrie here with you until 1 o'clock. And coming up, let me remind you that at the top of the hour, we have Ed Wiseman. I'm not sure how wise, but he is here. He's going to be here going through the papers for Tuesday. And Andy Lound, our spaceman, our favourite spaceman, will be here as well in a little while to talk about what's going on up above us, where we can have no control over it, but we can at least watch it and think it looks nice. With me now, though, is our sports reporter, Vanessa Damrosio. Good weekend this weekend.
Great weekend, Petrie. It was so exciting.
And you, of course, in the full professional attitude, got right into the football.
Oh, yeah, no, I did. I was wearing this like cool little bucket hat that they gave us. I was like all in. I was with one of my best friends, Ella, and she had her jersey on. And we went to the TalkSport fan zone at Wembley, and it was phenomenal. The atmosphere was contagious. It was absolutely wild. They were playing games, they had music, but the whole place was just erupting, especially when they equalised. And then, of course, won in the penalty shootout. One of the girls, Uma, who does some of the news updates on TalkSport, she was literally in tears. She was so excited. And then Leanne Sanders, who's a former Lioness herself, I said to Ella, I said, where's Leanne? I turned around and she was just sitting there like, needed to be on her own. She almost looked scared.
Really?
So, yeah, she's getting married this weekend as well. So I was like, well, she's got a jam-packed time, but it was phenomenal. So, you know, they had, I think it was 16 million people watched it in the UK and
wow.
45 million globally. So that's one of the biggest watched women's sporting events. And I just think this is so good for women in sport. We spoke about it a few weeks ago when I came on, and just the sponsorship deals that will come for this, or even the rights that people are going to pay
massive,
to watch, to have that broadcasted
and
now.
their salaries will now go up and all of that, and it will become a much more attractive thing for girls to get into.
Yeah.
But there's still been so many men that I've heard complaining about, oh, I'm so bored of women's football, it's so rubbish. You know, I think they've got a problem with women, to be honest with you, as a species. But, you know, also this argument, oh, well, you know, the men's sports team would beat the women's sports. And you just go, yeah, but you've got featherweight and heavyweight in boxing. It doesn't mean that one's better than the other. It just is a different weight.
Completely different.
And that's exactly the
They're
same.
completely different classes.
Exactly.
It's incomparable.
But these men complaining, they couldn't beat the Lionesses.
Oh, yeah, exactly. If we got one of those boys and we're like, go on then, if they'd run circles around them.
Oh, cool.
But I mean, like, women's football in itself is 50 years behind men. Like, it's quite literally 50 years behind men.
It was illegal, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was till 1971, and you had the first unofficial Lionesses team. They went to Mexico to participate in the World Cup there, and that manager, that coach, was actually banned from the FA, a lifetime ban for taking them there. So that's the unofficial. So if we're looking at 50-year increments, 50 years ago they had the first man that had the $1 million transfer. The women have just had their first $1 million transfer.
Yeah.
So we're literally 50 years behind, and over the next decades that will get smaller and smaller.
Yeah.
But the fact that women are, you know, getting that many viewers, that they're filling out stadiums. There was 34,000 people in attendance, 600
and not just women watching.
Yeah, everyone.
Not just women.
You had this guy on the screen, and apparently he's like the almost like the unofficial mascot of the women's Chelsea team, and he was on the big screen, and he was kitted up in everything. And I just think that's so good, like really inspiring new generations. These girls are, and I think they carried themselves well. And as a game, I love that they were super aggressive. I love seeing them get in there and tackle each other. I love to see them crack a ball.
Well, this was a big game for them, wasn't it? Because they played Spain last year.
Yeah. Well, the Spanish were tipped to win the tournament as well. So I think Spanish just weren't finishing. I feel like they got a lot of opportunities to get the ball down. They were very good with their little tricks and things. It was very nice. But when it counted to get the ball in the net, they just weren't able to do it. So I think that England played a really good game. I think it was exciting. The penalties were awesome. Like, it was great. It was just such an intense, awesome display of women's sport. And I think instead of poo-pooing it, we just need to take the celebrations. Why do you need to criticize it?
It's not taking anything away from men's football. This is just an extra. Just enjoy it.
Yeah, it was great.
And like you said, it's gonna create such a buzz for young women to actually be able to see playing football as a profession. Well,
it's only been an official profession for just over a decade.
Yeah.
So even that in itself, like, come on, let's just acknowledge where we're at and that it's making headways. And I can't wait for the rest to catch up.
And it's coming home with the trophies, which is more than the boys.
Yeah, so there's going to be a parade. Yeah, but look, they've been in the final for the last 3 major tournaments.
Yeah.
Stop poo-pooing it and start celebrating it.
Yeah, exactly. What is your problem if you're not?
And really? I did like that Addie and Simon Jordan on talkSPORT today were also saying how the Spanish are a bit like, you know, about one-eyed about the celebrations that the British girls are doing. And Simon, who has a place in Marbella, he was like, oh, just leave it. And he was being so supportive. And I thought that was really nice as well to see the lads really get on board.
Yeah. Well, I think, you know, if you're going to get 16 million people paying attention, talkSPORT needs to pay attention too.
Yeah, well, the Kickback is the women's channel that's on there. They have a great show with Shaban and Rouge, and they get phenomenal guests in there. And I think they do a good job of really, like, elevating
Yeah, they do,
that.
actually. And it would be so easy for them not to, right? But they did really well. And so we've got the parade tomorrow?
Yeah, I think that's going to be in London as well. Yeah. So that'll be great. I think it's in Trafalgar Square, if I'm not mistaken.
Probably.
I think it's where it was last time, which will be really cool.
That's really cool.
There'll be flags and horns and everything going off.
There'll be lots of people turning up for that. And the Rugby Lions.
Yeah, so it was pretty much a clean sweep for the Lions are made up from, you know, England, Wales, Ireland and Scotland. So it's a whole team. It's like the all-stars, basically.
Yeah.
I sort of like the Harlem Globetrotters of this region. And then they go around and they faced Australia. So they pulled it out of the bag and they stole it from the Aussies in the final minutes. It was Hugo Keenan that scored the winning try.
Though. I mean,
it was very good. And there was 90,000 people in attendance for that, and they weren't all Aussies. When the Lions scored, that stadium also erupted. So it was very, very cool. And they've got a third match, but I mean, it's already won for the Lions anyway. 12 years since they've won that tournament.
Wow.
And it was against Australia 12 years ago.
Was it?
Yeah. So they play every 4 years. Well, it's South Africa, New Zealand, Australia and the Lions in their own.
I mean, it's interesting. I mean, I didn't watch it, but you can see by the scoring, it wasn't a high-scoring game. So it was obviously a very defensive game. You can tell by looking at the scores.
Yeah.
And so tight. I mean, just 3 points in it.
Well, Australia was winning in the first 10 minutes. They'd already scored 2 tries. Then England comes back. By the time we get, it was an 18-point deficit.
Wow.
Well, not England, excuse me, the Lions. And they come back and they end up scoring the winning try in the final minutes. And it was controversial, but they went to the video replay and they gave it to them. And then it didn't matter with the kick anyway. They had already won.
They'd already won. Yeah, it's already there.
They'd already won. But yeah, it was really great. It was super competitive. What a historic weekend.
I know. Were you British? Were you English or Australian when you were watching the Australian game?
I feel like no comment.
Okay.
I'm the winning side. It's a win-win. I always say it's win-win.
You just choose the winning side.
It's a win-win.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm so global now.
Yeah. That's always the best, isn't it, when you can just choose which
I'm also Italian, so it's like, pick your winner.
Yeah, pick your winner.
Last weekend I could have been anything.
I love that. Cricket, just very quickly, we've got some cricket starting.
Yeah, the cricket's on starting this Thursday. We've got the test match against India. It's a must-win for India. It's going to be an aggressive rivalry. We'll see what happens, and that's just going to go into adding points to the tournament. So that starts this week from Thursday till the 2nd, and it's going to be commentary on the talkSPORT cricket channel.
Perfect. All right.
Yeah.
And just finally, we have to end up with MMA because that's your baby. That's your thing. Talk to me about Ben Askren.
So that's my feel-good story for this week. Ben Askren is a phenomenal mixed martial artist. He was an Olympic wrestler as well. He spent most of his MMA career undefeated, but he actually got a staph infection which turned into pneumonia. So this is a bacterial infection that's really common, particularly in gyms where there's close contact, any sort of fighting, grappling gym, but any gym it can be like this. And within 59 days, his body and his organs started to shut down, and he had a double lung transplant. But what I think is phenomenal is seeing the way other fighters and people have rallied to support him. And
wow, we've got pictures of him up on the screen.
Yeah, so 2019, he's squashing watermelons. His squeeze was that amazing. To there, and talking about his journey was really, really emotional. He's so positive, but the outpour of donations, his actual insurance company wouldn't cover it. And I think, you know, when you're talking about the cost of living crisis, it affects everyone. Is he American? He's American. I know they're in America, but you just see how it can affect everyone. He's world famous, an Olympian, a champion, an all-American wrestler, and a coach and a mentor. And you know, you have people like Jake Paul, which, you know, I know he's a personality, but they did have a fight. He stepped in to donate money. A double lung transplant starts at $2 million. Oof. And he's famous, and his family couldn't afford it, so they relied on donations. He's married with children, very devoted father, and I just think it speaks to being
it's disgusting.
You know,
the American
stand-up
health system is
champion, but also talks to being the compassion of humans, but also like, where are we going where we can't afford, no one can afford
somebody's life,
healthcare or a home, and all these different situations. But it's been so beautiful to follow his journey. It's been inspirational, and I think if anyone wants a little bit of feel-good emotional stuff, it's really great to follow his story. And one of the most heart-wrenching things is he said that when he read his wife's diary, it was like attending his own funeral, but being able to live past it. He has no recollection. He was just training and coaching, and then boop, lights out. And
he looks like the kind of guy who will get back up to full health. And
I really hope so. I really hope that he goes on to inspire and coach more people.
Wow.
Yep.
Wow, incredible story. Vanessa, thank you.
Thank you so much, guys.
Vanessa Damrosio, our sports reporter. Stay where you are, because we're heading to the stars next.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello there. Yes, indeed, this is Talk, and it's Petrie with you until 1 o'clock. Coming up, Ed Wiseman at the top of the hour to go through the papers for Tuesday. Now, though, let's head to the stars, and our favourite spaceman, Andy Lounge, joins me now. How are you, Andy?
I'm fine, thank you. How are you?
Good, very, very well, thank you. Oh, look at your fabulous jacket. I love that. Right, let's talk about the Meteor Shower. Haven't we had one of these earlier as well?
Yeah, we have there's quite a few during the year, but we're coming up to what's thought to be the best public display in the Northern Hemisphere, which is the Perseids. Perseid Meteor Shower, which is every August. It's already started technically, but the peak of it is usually the 12th and 13th of August, which is the best time. And we always talk about it because this is the one that all the amateur societies can get the public out and actually get them to see something usually.
Yeah.
That's the beautiful of it. And this is a really good one. So if you want a night of shooting stars, this is the one always to go for because you've got a good chance of getting it. And it's also summertime, so you're actually in good warm conditions, generally speaking.
So everybody should be able to see this.
Oh yes, yes.
But with the naked eye.
Yeah. This is a shooting star thing exercise, so you don't need any special equipment. You can just go out. Make sure you're in a dark place, though. Turn all the lights off because it makes it better, and just look at the sky. You can look at the sky anywhere. We call it the Perseids because as the shooting stars shoot from the sky, as you can see from the picture behind me, if you trace the radiant back, they always seem to point to the constellation Perseus. They've got nothing to do with Perseus. That's a purely line of sight effect. And we use that as just a way of explaining it to people which one it is. These are bits of a comet called Swift-Tuttle. It last passed the Earth in 1992. It won't be around again until 2126. And essentially these things are very, very small. They're dust sizes, mainly pieces of ice. Sometimes there's pieces of dust with them. And they enter the atmosphere traveling about 133,000 miles per hour. So they then heat up, and of course you see this beautiful shooting star going across the sky. As far as we know, they never ever land. Nothing comes down to the ground. So one in the sky is a meteor. If it hits the ground and lands on the ground, the piece of rock is called a meteorite. So it's the right of a meteor. So that's the distinction between the two. It is possible that some dust grains do actually come down to the ground, but they've never been firmly identified as those of Swift-Tuttle. But this is the one to do it, and people can just go out. You can take your camera if you like, leave it on long exposure, and you might get some streaks, which is the pictures behind me, taken by long exposure, so you get the streaks going across the sky. And you could see 100, maybe up to 200 an hour, depending where you are. On a dark sky, you'll see the very faint ones as well as the very bright ones. And sometimes they're very bright indeed and do really spectacularly light up. So they're really good. I've seen them through cloud, for instance.
Wow. And how many are we likely to see? There's hundreds of them.
Yeah. I mean, you could see a good 100 an hour easily at the peak.
Wow.
Tell you how good they can be. I observed from the centre of Birmingham. I used to live very close to the centre of Birmingham, and I was observing there. And you saw them all over the place then. Imagine the streetlights. Plus, I also, a rare occasion, heard whistling ones, and that's because they've actually penetrated so low into the atmosphere you can actually hear the sound, which is very unusual, but I have managed to do that as well. And so the Perseids is the best one to go for if everyone wants to go out and have a bit of fun and enjoy themselves. We do have a bit of a moon, unfortunately, which helps unfortunately block out the light for the fainter ones, but the bright ones will be seen. And go out there in a nice lounging chair, get something to drink, get something to eat, just lie back and enjoy the night sky.
Yeah, what dates were they again?
12th and 13th is the peak
Of August.
Of August, yeah. So it's coming up very soon, and you'll want to look about after 11 o'clock time is the time to really have a look. So I really want to see quite late. I mean, I've been on places like Cannock Chase.
I bet I'm in the studio. Is that a Tuesday, Wednesday?
You've thrown me there. I don't know off the top of my head. But,
Yeah,
but,
I'm just asking my team to figure it out for me.
But yeah, it's always worth a look. People got security cameras. Turn the security cameras up to the sky.
Yeah.
Because sometimes they pick things up. You'd be amazed what they pick up.
Yeah, we'll be working. Maybe we can have the blind up. We'll open the blind and have a look out into the London night sky. See if we can see it there. It's a shame. I would have loved that. If it had been a Thursday, I'd have been out in my garden looking for that.
Yeah, people have star parties, or what we used to call them as starbecues.
Very good.
We used to have big bangers, for instance, things like that. You can imagine how far this goes. After
yeah. I can imagine. Let's talk now about NASA. Because there's some serious budget cuts coming for NASA, and they're not happy about it.
Yeah, now this is the fallout for what we've discussed before. 300 scientists have signed what they're calling the Voyager Declaration, and they're highlighting to the President of the United States and to Congress the issues of if these budget cuts go through. It's interesting people are talking about the budget because it hasn't actually been approved yet. Anyway, it hasn't been signed off yet, so it's still going through. Although there is some suspicions of what's going on because some NASA officials have actually already started to apply things and they haven't the authority to do it yet. But it could mean a cost reduction in staff, which is always a big issue. Always worried when people start losing their jobs. But they do point out that they're actually switching off. They'll have to switch off certain missions. One of them is the Voyager missions. They'll no longer monitor the 2 Voyager spacecraft, which are flying out through the solar system, or the New Horizons spacecraft. And you can't switch them on again. Once you did switch it off, that's it. It's finished. You've lost it forever. Lots of science projects may actually go. International cooperation may go as well. And the scientists have written to say shouldn't be done. This is detrimental to the science in general, detrimental to the intellectual capability of the United States and working with their partners. I agree with absolutely all of that, but unfortunately, and I have to say this, I have to be quite honest with people here, NASA's budget and the cost overruns, the delays in time overruns have been so high. You can just see people looking and going, wait a minute, what's going on here? And it's interesting that when this was posted on various news sites, it was interesting the pushback that came from the public was quite interesting. The public saying, we love all the science, but cost overruns, time delays. And everyone was saying exactly the same thing, that they're probably not getting value for money. Now, President Trump is not a scientist. He would not probably understand the benefit of the science itself. But no. He is a businessman, and I've looked at some of these figures and I'm thinking, we've been critical over things like the Artemis program, which was years over date, way over budget. The Webb telescope, which is brilliant, it's done really well, but again, it was late, it was over budget. The sample return mission, which will go if these budget cuts come in, but the sample return mission has moved from $2 billion to $11 billion. Wow. And is about 20 years late.
I mean, you always see this, don't you, with government money, wherever it is. It's, people seem to take it for granted, and maybe, it's time that they started treating it like a business would.
I think so, and I think what people are seeing is how SpaceX can do very similar things at a lot cheaper, and I think that is quite interesting. And I think what we need to see is a better merger, perhaps, of NASA and private sector coming tighter together to actually control it better. I mean, I think I said before, I was at a meeting in Birmingham, a Zoom meeting about putting these small modular nuclear reactors, and listening to the figures the scientists were talking about, you're thinking, where are you going to get all this money from? Yeah. Oh, well, the government has given us so many billions, and we think industry could supply it as well. Think about how much money you're talking about here. Yeah. There's a housing crisis, which you did a brilliant piece on that just recently, of the housing thing. People can't afford to live, and you're
talking about this sort of money on nicety, on important but extras, and it.
Yes, yeah. And I think they need to be realistic. I mean, we saw with Beagle 2, for instance, the Beagle 2 mission, brilliant concept, but they had no concept. The scientists didn't are running it and how to organise the money. And I think scientists are good at doing the science, but they're not businessmen or women.
Yeah. That is very true. Maybe it is time for those things to be closer together. I've always thought that we can't build anything in this country. We're absolutely have a look at HS2. Wild new Skyfall Mars mission. That sounds like a film.
Well, this is what's brilliant. This is an important link to what we just talked about, because suddenly you need to reduce the cost of exploring Mars, and the biggest cost is dropping a rover onto the surface with this huge, what they call it, the sky crane, which is thrusters. Private companies come up with an idea of something called Skyfall. What it is, you drop a spacecraft through the atmosphere and it releases a number of small drones, helicopters. Now, these helicopters will be a lot cheaper than a rover, but cover a larger distance. They could carry radar equipment, LiDAR equipment, for instance, which would be we've seen how useful LiDAR has been, for instance, finding lost cities in the Amazon, for instance. So you could use LiDARs, things like that, take temperature measurements, you could drop onto the surface, take samples, do the sampling, lift the helicopter up again, move on. So you could actually drop something like 6 to 9 helicopters from one mission, fraction of the cost of a rover, and probably do more science.
Now, that sounds brilliant.
This has come about because President Trump, love him or hate him, has sort of said, well, you can't afford all this. And they said, right, we need to think outside the box now. How can we do the science but get the cost down? This is one way of doing it. And I thought, brilliant, because of course we're already using in 2028 we should be launching a type of helicopter to Saturn's moon Titan. It's called Dragonfly. This is quite a big helicopter.
I mean, this, like you said, sometimes innovation comes when budgets have to be cut. Andy, thank you. Absolutely brilliant. Lovely to see you. Hopefully see you soon. Andy Lound, the space expert. Right, coming up now, we're going to be looking at the papers with Ed Wiseman.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This
Hello there, it's great to have your company, and it's also great to have the company of Ed Wiseman with me, transport and travel journalist. Hello.
Hi, Petrie.
Just admiring your is it a shacket?
It's a shacket, I think.
It's a shacket.
Marks and Spencer's corduroy
shacket.
It works quite well, although I do have to be careful that I don't get dust on it. It turns out I am quite messy. And there's often sort of a lot of stuff, and you can sort of tell.
Did you get it from your dad?
No, I didn't, but I could have done. He's actually far more stylish than I am. He's a cable net kind of guy.
Oh, is he?
Yeah.
Oh,
he's repping traditional threads, really, whereas I tend to mix things up. I'm also wearing possibly the worst shoes.
Are you?
I hurt my foot.
Oh, no.
On Saturday.
How?
Sprained my toe. Because I'm old now, I sprained my toe on a long walk. And so I'm wearing quite ugly trainers. They're my painting trainers.
Oh, nice.
So they were proper trainers, then they got relegated to gardening and then painting, but because they're the most comfortable footwear that I own.
Because they're old and they're baggy.
Exactly,
so
they're squishy, but they're orange. I won't show you them now. They're the colour of a Dynarod van. They're very lurid, but they're also very dirty.
And you bought them once?
Yeah, I bought them possibly because they were orange, and it appealed to me in the same way that an anglerfish
Did you think it was
catches its prey.
trendy?
I don't think I applied that much thought to it. I probably went on Clarks.com and saw by lowest price first.
Clarks as well as Marks and Spencer?
I assume so. It would have been that long ago. I'm not a particularly discerning consumer of footwear, but these things happen.
These things when you get old.
If you have a good pair of shoes, doesn't matter what they look like, keep hold of them.
Keep hold of them.
That's
I do. I've got a pair of trainers that I wear, and I've also bought the new version of them, still unworn.
Yeah.
Because they're not comfortable.
Yeah.
and I want comfort.
That is, and they change the recipe sometimes. Don't
They do.
That's
They
the
do.
problem.
Yeah.
And you trick yourself into thinking, "Oh, I'll just wear them a little bit longer."
Yeah.
And then next thing you know, sprained your toe.
Yeah, no,
It's a problem.
It's not good. You're starting to go, ooh, oh,
Yeah.
when you get up.
Oh yeah, definitely do a lot of that. Sometimes even when I'm not getting up, just aches and pains. I was told actually earlier this week by my dentist that I am approaching middle age, according to his computer system. I'm 35.
Well, yeah.
Is that middle age? Am I approaching middle age?
Well, I suppose. Well, if that would give you. He reckons you're going to be dead by 70.
Possibly. Is it? That's the bang in the middle.
Bang in the middle.
Well, I was quite aggrieved by it at the time, but then I did, like I say, sprain my foot and have to sort of
appreciate that.
Hobble around. Maybe I am not in my prime anymore.
Yeah. I don't know what prime is, but I think that's long behind.
I was expecting it to have happened at some point, but maybe it did one evening, and I just wasn't really paying attention. Maybe my prime
Maybe your prime is behind you.
was a singularity that occurred 7 years ago, possibly when I bought these horrible shoes. But,
Potentially.
Yeah.
Talking about buying things. Housing.
Mm-hmm.
What is affordable housing? What is truly affordable housing? What would be affordable for you?
It's 20% below market rate, isn't it? For
But that's
affordable.
not affordable.
It's not affordable really, because market rate is often very unaffordable.
Yeah.
It's social rent is 50% off, isn't it?
Yeah.
They do have a system for this, but I don't think 20% off is as a discount.
It's not affordable.
It depends how rich you are.
But I mean, well, if you're rich, you wouldn't be seeking affordable housing.
No.
Or the discount for that. You probably wouldn't be eligible for it. So I'm just trying to figure out, if 80% value, you're still looking at, let's say, in London for a 2-bedroom flat, you'd still be looking at 600,000?
Yeah, depending where you were,
Yeah.
I'm sure. But yeah.
So that's after the discount, maybe, or at least maybe you're still looking at 500,000. What do you have to be earning to be able to afford the mortgage for that? I don't understand how that suddenly becomes affordable when we know that it isn't. It's out of the reach of most people to be able to buy something or to put a deposit down on something that is £500,000-700,000 for a 2-bedroom flat.
Yes, that would be quite an expensive way to start your housing ladder, I think.
Okay, so you'd start with a 1-bedroom that was 400,000.
I would move further out. I bought my 2-bed for under 400.
Right.
I say under 400. It was a lot less than 400, but it was also a wreck.
Where do you live? Scotland.
Blackheath.
Blackheath. That's
Which
not
is
that far.
It's lovely. It has no tube.
Ah, yeah.
It has no tube. So the issue there is that
I go through Blackheath quite a lot on the way to Lewisham.
on the way to Lewisham.
Is that right?
What on earth are you going to Lewisham for?
That'd be right, wouldn't it? Sort of.
Yeah, you can.
Oh,
It's-
yeah. Why am I going to Lewisham? I know. I don't do it.
Slightly circuitous route, but yes, but that's not really the main issue here. The main issue here is
Why would you go to
why on
Lewisham?
earth? Talking of Marks and Spencers, as we just were,
Yeah.
brilliant one on the high street.
In Lewisham?
Not really a great deal else on the high street.
No. My brother lives down there.
Oh, really? Whereabouts?
He lives. Well, it's on the border of Catford.
Okay, sure, down that way.
Down
Yes.
that way.
So you would go down.
Yeah.
Down through.
Yeah.
But that is a really interesting part of London in the context of this conversation, because there are parts of Blackheath which are quintessentially very lovely that are very affordable. You can get a 2-bedroom or sometimes a 3-bedroom house for under 500,000.
But how
which
do
is
you
terrific.
travel?
Overground. Not overground, normal train.
Oh, right.
Just normal train. You have to get normal trains everywhere or buses.
Yeah.
But it's, I think, 9 minutes, 11 minutes to London Bridge, which is fine for coming to see you.
Yeah.
Not great if you need to go to Acton.
No, not great if you want to go
there's
to where I live.
the
Yeah.
Jubilee line, there's boats if you're feeling flamboyant, the DLR, it's quite well connected in the big scheme of things. And I think that's what is quite interesting about that area, is that it includes some very, very
But
expensive
all it
stuff.
takes, and this is what happens, is that people who are now living in my area couldn't afford Notting Hill anymore.
No.
Right? So I'm Shepherd's Bush. So
Yeah.
you get them and they move like that and they go, oh, we can't afford it, so we'll buy somewhere in Shepherd's Bush, which immediately pushes the prices up in Shepherd's Bush. So people who are Shepherd's Bushians then can't afford to buy in Shepherd's Bush, so they have to go further out. They have to go Acton Acton, and then those prices go up, and so this is what we're seeing is this wave effect that where nothing is truly affordable. Wherever they're building now, they're not building the right things, I don't think. And we've been promised 1.5 million houses, homes, by the end of this Parliament. Well, they've got 3 years. That's never going to happen.
It's never going to happen anyway.
It was never going to happen. Why they said it?
I think the big risk is that it doesn't happen and the homes that are built are all very expensive. That would be a lose-lose in a way.
Yeah.
I vaguely have a tiny amount of not particularly deep sympathy for this trickle-down idea that if you build enough luxury flats, then it might take the edge off the prices of the cheaper ones. But if all you build is luxury flats, then where do people go?
Yeah.
And yes, as you say, people have moved from Notting Hill to Shepherd's Bush, then Shepherd's Bush out to obscure parts of Chiswick, and then up into eventually everybody's in Perivale, like right out, thinking, well, we've been pushed out. But that's only because people can afford the middle. There are people there who can buy those houses.
Who?
Well, the people who are living there now, I assume. Go and knock on the door and ask what their job is.
Yeah. What's your job, and how did you get all this money? And do you pay your fair share of tax?
Precisely. I mean, they probably do. They're probably sort of minted tech bros, or being bought up for corporate lets.
But it's the shortage of properties, isn't it, that creates this imbalance?
Shortage of properties and bad transport. Not to bring everything back to transport, as I always do, but houses in the wrong place and that are badly connected are a little bit useless. It's all very well talking about building houses, but if you're building them in the middle of a field, which is what house builders have done for the past 30 years. Which they prefer to do because it's cheaper to do, you get more money from it, you don't have to worry about services, you can just do it all quickly. Little ticky-tacky little homes, not particularly high quality, cookie cutter, economies of scale, brilliant. If you are a developer, not so great to live there and not very good for the environment. But if we keep doing that, then of course we're going to have a housing crisis, because everybody needs to live within either striking distance of their work, or they're going to have to drive everywhere. Yeah. The whole thing is not particularly well thought out. We're doing both. Interestingly, when you think about when housing was built properly in the 50s, across the whole of Europe, there was a real glut of people building really high quality homes. And we're doing part of that. We're saying at the top level of government, we should build all these homes. And then the actual work and the decision making is being done by the private sector, which exists to make as much money as possible. Whereas in the 50s, it was all in-house. Councils were building. Yeah, exactly. And even in the 70s as well, they were building, the Labour was building social housing. Precisely, actually building social housing. Because social housing, if, for example, there's more competition in the housing market, because at the moment you're looking at rents that have gone up on average £221 a month. Yep. So that's £2,500 a year. And that's not sustainable for people whose jobs are not, their money isn't increasing at that level themselves, because there's no, if you don't accept that rent, where else are you going to go? Yeah, you have to go. Whereas if there was good quality social housing, or even shared ownership housing, and much more of it, then people can say, well, actually, no, that doesn't suit me. I will go and try, get social housing, or get something that's equity shared with the council, and then private rents would have to come down theoretically to compete. Yes, but we don't have any of those escape mechanisms. It's either private rent or full-on council homes, or homeless. Yeah, or homeless. There is the other option, of course, or just disappearing off into the countryside, which a lot of people are doing. I say the countryside, zone 8, zone 9. Which makes their commutes longer, more expensive, disruptive for family life, all sorts of problems. But at the same time, the problem, I think, lies in our obsession with viability as a bellwether for whether housing development should take place. We put too much emphasis on whether the developer can make money from it. Well, we know whatever the problem in this country is, just follow the money. Oh yeah, right? Completely. But housing, I think, in this country has reached, it's gone beyond crisis. And I think that also so much of the other failings in this country can be tied into not having good quality permanent homes. Yes. And that is mental health issues. Oh yeah. You've got people, not coming into the workplace, not
you know, why should young people really bother with the social contract where they've been signed out of ever owning property?
Completely.
And then we're talking about the birth rate is not good enough because you know, people can't, and that's can come back to housing as well. So pressure on the NHS, pressure on social services, the pressure on properties because they're not building enough 1-bedroom or 2-bedroom places where older people can downsize to, and then relinquish their properties. They, you know, all of that. They make it so expensive as well with capital, not capital gains, but yes, it is. It's capital gains on property, isn't it? And stamp duty and all of those things just make it cost about 50 grand. I think that's what it roughly cost me to downsize. And you've got to have that money in order to downsize.
And
so
there's mortgage. And,
exactly.
As soon as you're in negative equity, you're doomed.
Yeah. So all of those things make it impossible for the housing market to not be where it is now, and that's sort of stuck.
It's kind of stuck, and lots of people are taking money out of it.
Yeah.
Which also has an effect. People don't have this disposable discretionary income.
No.
Which has a huge knock-on effect on the economy. If you are spending more than half of your money on rent and most of the remainder on necessities, then of course the high street is going to die. Of course there are medium to long-term impacts on the rest of society, as you say. And also, the vibes are bad. Yeah. I think, like you say, the social contract, if you are not particularly well connected by public transport, so you have to get lifts everywhere or walk or just not go anywhere, and you don't have stable housing, it doesn't take very much for you to think, well, what's the point then?
Yeah. I'm never going to be able to afford that. A lot of people are thinking, well, I'm never going to be able to buy a house.
Because that has been a motivating factor for a lot of people historically, saving up to buy a house. Yeah. Whereas now that prize no longer exists unless you have wealthy parents or just generous parents.
If you've got somebody who can just hand out some cash, absolutely.
Which also amplifies the class and other divides that we have in this country. It means that there is a huge division how far you're going to get in life. There always has been that as a child and as a teenager. If you're from a wealthy family, you do better. But now there's another sort of fork in the lane when you're 25 and some of your friends' parents will say, here's 150 grand, go and buy a flat in Clapham. And some of your friends won't do that. Yeah. Which is probably undermining any progress that we've made.
I agree. I completely agree. I think housing is very much they talk about the red wall or social mobility. The lack of decent, affordable housing, I think, has got to be the biggest block to social mobility.
And decent housing. A lot of the houses that we've built over the past 30 years have been not very good. Yeah,
not very good. And so you've got people who might be, like me, I was sort of brought up in the Oxfordshire countryside near Banbury in a little village. Couldn't wait to get the hell out of Dodge, right? Yeah. As soon as I could. And I was moved to London. Well, I was just sleeping on somebody's sofa for 6 months, sharing a bed with a girlfriend of mine for another year, all of those things. But at least I was able to do that. And it now, if you're that young person in the countryside, think, well, how the hell do I move to London? How do I have that adventure? How do I make that journey? How do I afford, having to work for free? Yeah. While I get my
while it's £1,000 for a room.
When it's £1,000 for a room in a shared house. Yeah. It's just it breaks my heart because I think that is a really fundamental.
How do you leave your hometown?
Yeah. How do you?
How do you go on an adventure when it's going to cost you more than you make?
Yeah.
Even if you go to a cheap town where it's only £600 a month, that's still a lot. What's that at minimum wage? Yeah. What's that if you're trying to do something creative? Yeah. I was talking about this with a friend about all the bands that came out of the 50s, 60s, and there was tertiary education. There were these colleges that people could go to, and all of this wonderful music sprung out of that. And there is no investment in that kind of thing now. Yeah. To go to those kinds of universities, you have to have a lot of money, and then you have to have even more money to pay some landlord, £10,000-15,000 a year to keep you in a not very good flat. Obviously, you're not going to form a band. No. That's not the kind of environment where you get the Rolling Stones or Led Zeppelin. It's no wonder there isn't really anything.
Or even, those people who want to be actors or people who want to go into the creative
exactly.
industry. Or any kind of industry now, because even if it's marketing or advertising or media or any of those things, there's a good deal of people that have to work for nothing when they first start out in journalism, for example. You probably did it, I did it. And there is no longer the leeway in the system to allow that to happen.
No.
And it must just be so crushing to be young and from a town or a village outside of a main hub and thinking, how do I do this? Whereas we just used to grab a backpack and think, right, I'm heading into London. I've got a couple of friends who live there. I'll be all right for a few weeks, few months. Pay a bit of rent. It would be fine. And it was.
Yeah, it worked for a while. It was a system.
Yeah, it was.
But now everything is...
It's too expensive, and I don't blame young people for opting out of society. I really don't. I wish they didn't, but...
A cup of tea costs £3.
Ridiculous.
It's sort of... there's no...
No.
What's the point?
Yeah. Why not just stay in your bed and play Xbox?
Yeah, kind of, because it's free and cheap and easy, and like everybody. Yeah, I feel sorry for them.
I do too. I really do, because there's no. You can look at them going, well, what's the point? I'm not going to ever be able to do anything.
Yeah.
Like that, so. Let's have a look at the LA Times before we go to a break. COVID is rising. Following Northern California, as Southland sees an uptick. The next 2 weeks could be key. COVID-19 is once again on the rise in California. God, blimey.
There's always COVID. Everyone's
it's
still
the
getting
flu, isn't it?
COVID a little bit. I think so.
Yeah.
Are people still getting bad COVID? I think people are still getting very groggy with it.
Yeah, some people are still getting COVID, but I don't think it's that bad.
I feel worse for the Americans. Talking of safety nets, I'd feel a bit more worried if I didn't have 3 hospitals near me for free.
Yeah.
Whereas if I was sort of old or immunocompromised, I'd probably think, oh, yikes.
I would never get... I mean, American health system is just shocking.
Yeah.
Bad. It's just shockingly bad. People are dying in line. A legal path... This is a legal path to the US is elusive. Amid raids, politicians see a window for immigration reform. And so John Manley is sick of people telling immigrants to stand in line and do the right thing. An immigration attorney for almost 3 decades in LA, he has said that most don't understand that trying to legally come into the US is nearly impossible for people from certain nations. People are dying in line. It's just, this is the thing. People go, oh, well, you've had all those years to get your documents in order, and it's not as simple as that in the US.
It's a very weird system. You can be undocumented for a very long time.
Yeah. And you pay tax on your job and you pay into Social Security, but you're not allowed to get the money out of Social Security.
It's a really odd setup.
Yeah.
It's a very primitive setup in a way. It's a very peculiar alternative to the way that the Europeans do it. And I feel awful for the people involved, but it's also confusing to think that some of these people have been in these precarious regulatory situations since the 90s.
Yeah.
And they might be married or have children, and they're very well embedded in society.
And they're still waiting for that final confirmation. But before that's happening now, they're being
But on paper,
deported.
it's weird to think that you are a walking, talking citizen of the land, but you're missing a docket, which means that you could get just
deported,
disappeared off to somewhere else.
Which is happening. So
it must be so weird for those communities.
Awful. Heartbreaking actually at the moment for them. You've got people, like you said, who've been there for decades. There was one man who was deported to not his own country. I think he died. He was an older man.
Yes,
he was a gardener. And his 2 sons were in the Marines.
Yeah, exactly, which is as all-American
as you can possibly get.
It really is.
Shocking. Right, let's take a quick break, and Ed Wiseman and I will be back in just a moment.
Across the UK. On DAB. Across the UK. On DAB+. On your smart speaker. On your smart TV. And on your side.
Hello there, this is Talk and it's Petrie here with you, and with me is Ed Wiseman, and we are going through the papers for Tuesday. The Times, Ed, the BMA risking lives by refusing to let striking doctors work. I thought the whole point of striking was to not work.
Yes, that is the objective. The BMA's rejected more requests, I think, because the hospitals can request the doctors break the strike.
Oh, the ones that didn't vote for necessarily to come out on strike?
I assume so. I don't really understand how derogations, I don't really understand how they work, but you can, the NHS can say, please send some doctors, people are dying, and the BMA is saying no.
That's extreme, isn't it? I mean, especially if what if there was suddenly an emergency?
Yeah.
God forbid that there was a crash or a terror attack or something.
I do wonder.
What would happen then?
Readiness.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, they used to send the fire brigade out, didn't they? And their green goddesses.
Yeah.
Do you remember?
Yeah, yeah.
The army used to come out when the fire brigade was on strike. I don't know. I don't know what the somebody must have a plan written down, even if it's only on the back of a post-it note. But it does feel as though, is the tide turning against the strikers?
I think this one is. I think because they've already had a 28.5% pay increase and they're asking for another 29%.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people in this country, knowing the struggle that we have financially, they're just saying, no, come on. And this is also leading to nurses now. They're balloting for strike because they're saying, well, they got 28.5%. They want another 29%. They're getting concessions made for them. What about us? We want our share of this as well. So we could see a point where the nurses come out and strike as well.
Well, and any other public sector worker, presumably. Because they've all been a bit shafted by all of the doctors receiving quite a lot of
money, but I just don't. I mean,
not that they shouldn't be remunerated for their work, but it strikes me that they are disproportionately strike heavy at the moment. But then wouldn't you be if every time you did it you got more money?
It would never happen in this industry.
No.
You'd be replaced within 3 seconds of walking out the door.
Yeah, if that.
So, no, I just think that it's, that at the moment, you'd have to be pretty dumb to think that this country at the moment could afford a pay rise of that nature, given the pressures that we're under.
I don't know. I feel as though
and they've already been told, haven't they, that West Streeting has already said there is no money.
Yeah, I think West Streeting's in a bit of a tough position because if he capitulates to these guys, he's going to have to deal with another 4 years of public sector strikes.
Yeah.
But if he doesn't, he's going to have to deal with another winter and
NHS being in a disaster. I don't think they've got the support of the public like they did last time.
No, I don't think so. But does the public support anything at the moment? I feel as though there's just no solidarity really at the moment. It's kind of
we're all feeling a bit depressed and fed up, to be honest.
A little bit. I think all it will take is for the tube to go on strike again for the mood to sour a little bit. But I don't think they have recently.
Why are you saying that out loud?
Yeah, I know. He's probably listening right now.
Of course they are.
No, I don't know. I mean, I don't have strong opinions. I do feel as though maybe there comes a point where the unions are working in the favour of the unions rather than the...
Well, certainly Bob Crow was that.
Yeah, for example.
Bob Crow was working because he wanted his union to be the most powerful, and it was the most powerful. But I don't often think he was working for the benefit of of his members. Although they're the best paid, aren't they?
Yes,
that union.
Pretty comfortably. I think it's not really like with like, I don't think. But yes, they have a particularly cushy work-life balance. Well, I don't know. Maybe it's not. I've never tried it, despite my emails. But the
do you want to drive a tube?
I'd love to. I tried to drive the tram. I
But
sent them
all you do is press.
I think you do. I think
just press a
I
button
think
to
it's
open
very
the
very
doors.
tedious. Yeah.
Ah.
I tried to get lessons in driving a tram when I was at PA, but they didn't.
They wouldn't do it.
They wouldn't do. No, there was that rail crash. There was the crash in Croydon, and the.
Was that you?
No, it wasn't. It wasn't. But it had just happened, and they said it would sort of be quite
No
bad
chance.
optics to let some chump jump in. But anyway, no, I think are we going to have just another bunch more strikes?
I think
Is that going to be?
I think there's a lot of dissatisfaction in this country at the moment, and I can just see it.
But how do you reconcile Labour's position on unions and Labour's positions on waiting lists?
Well, you know what, when they first came out of the gate, when they first got elected, they made what I think is a fundamental mistake of suddenly coughing up, £10 billion here and £10 billion there, and paying two unions off straight away, both of whom now are coming back for more money because they both gone, well, that was easy, and it's a Labour government. If we can't get it under Labour, we won't get it under the next lot. So I think that's what they've done. The Lionesses, did you watch the match?
No, I didn't.
Was it not for you?
I didn't watch it, but I'm pleased that everyone's having fun.
Yeah. Pressure is growing to recognise more of the Lionesses' star players in the next honours list. They will be, won't they? Didn't Keir Starmer say the last one that we should have a public holiday if they brought back a trophy? And yet now he's in power.
Yeah.
He's gone very quiet.
Very quiet about that, yeah. How much does a public holiday cost?
Billions.
Is quite a lot, isn't it?
2.6 billion.
Oh, that's less than I thought somehow.
Oh.
Is that all we do in a day?
Yeah.
2.6 billion. I mean, I guess that's a lot.
Well, a lot of people still have to work.
Yeah, I suppose it's not all. But then the people who do have to work are probably not the high earners. It's probably the people who are.
It's me.
It's you
and my team.
People working behind the bar.
Yeah, exactly.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
Yeah. God,
I don't know, but listen, there's a parade tomorrow for the Lionesses for their congratulations. President Trump has come up with some advice for our Prime Minister. Has told Sir Keir Starmer to cut taxes and stop small crossings if he's to defeat Nigel Farage. Brilliant.
I think that's...
Trump said politics is pretty simple.
Yeah. I don't think that's going to work.
I don't think that's going to work.
I don't think that doing Farage things is going to... Because you're never going to out-Farage, are you?
No. And also with a Prime Minister who speaks like that, it just doesn't inspire anybody to be particularly excited by anything he says. No.
And I don't think he'll ever be tough enough on small boats to really sate the appetite.
Yeah.
No. And if you cut tax, you have to cut services.
Yeah.
Which is a disaster.
Yeah. Although that's exactly what Trump is doing in the States.
Oh, yeah, precisely, which is a
cutting
disaster.
Medicaid, Medicare and things like that. I think we've got to take a break.
Another.
I'm having to look at another clock. It's very discombobulating. Quick break, back in a sec.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello there, this is Talk, and it's Petrie with you, and with me, Ed Wiseman.
Hello.
Hello. And we're going through the papers for Tuesday. Financial Times, EU markets reel as big nations cast doubt on Washington trade deal. In other words, Ursula von der Leyen has done a deal, and France, for example, not happy about it, and neither is Germany. They're saying, I mean, basically, that we were trading between each other on a tariff of about 1.2%, and now it's 15%.
Yeah.
Trump hates the EU.
Yeah.
He believes that the EU was only set up to destroy America, just because it's a big market. It had nothing to do with America. It's a big collective market, but he still hasn't done anything on steel, and that's the biggest thing. It's 50% on steel. Jitters in Paris and Berlin. Big drop for the euro, and car makers' shares fall.
I don't think anybody's happy with it.
No,
it doesn't seem like.
I don't think it's beneficial to the US either.
I don't think it's beneficial to the US.
Both the US and the UK and Europe are in a worse position now than they were before.
But even at the top level, it seems to be only van der Leyen who's that interested in this outcome. A lot of the other negotiators were not happy.
Not happy at all.
I think wanted to hold the line a little bit more. And
I mean, that's part of this. I guess will be because they're thinking, well, you know, officially Trumpism has only got another 3.5 years. Is it better to keep him calm?
Yeah.
For that length of time, and then as soon as it isn't Trump anymore, then maybe there would be some changes able to be made. I don't know. But you've got countries like Canada who are now circumventing America. They're just going, right, well, we're just going to scrap that
sit
now,
this one out,
and we're just going to build alliances with other countries.
Yeah. Which is going quite well.
It is going quite well for Canada and for Mexico.
And for Mexico.
And what they'll do is they probably won't go back to America.
Yeah.
That's the damage that could be being done here.
Yeah.
Is that we all find different trade routes, we all find different ways of doing this. And then by the time America sort of stabilises again...
It's going to take a while to rebuild. Yeah,
it really will. And he's still talking about these countries paying these tariffs.
Yeah.
And it's kind of...
That's how it works.
That's not how it works, Donny. It is you're the American people, again, with their prices going up. Walmart has just had to go up on its prices. And he's blaming Walmart and saying, well, you shouldn't do that. And it's like, well, we're a business. We're not a charity.
That's where the money comes from. Yeah, precisely.
And the tariffs are being paid for by us as the importer. So we have to pass those on to the American people. But he's still talking about it as if all these countries paying all these billions of pounds.
Yeah. I mean, does he not know?
It doesn't sound like it.
It does seem, the whole thing seems a bit... I don't think he's the one calling the shots. I think he's a puppet for something.
Project 25.
Yeah, or I was thinking...
Steve Miller.
I was thinking Russia.
Oh, possibly.
I mean, this is absolutely, you know, he's sort of decimating a century of international relations.
Yeah, completely destroying it.
On the other hand, it does seem, like you say, that the European powers at least seem to acknowledge that this was an okay outcome, given that it could have been worse.
Given that that's the only thing, and that's the same with Keir Starmer, who we see toadying up to this buffoon, and you know, standing there taking these insults that he's throwing at Britain, because he doesn't want it to be worse.
Yes.
I mean, I don't envy Starmer. Maybe that's what he's got to do. But I wouldn't be able to hold my tongue.
No, but then I suppose that's why you're not the.
That's why I'm not a diplomat.
Yeah, exactly. That's why you're not allowed in the room for that precise reason.
Yeah.
I noticed a subtle dig on Greggs to the bottom left of the front page of the FT.
Oh no.
Has the market had its fill? What are your thoughts on Greggs?
I've never been to a Greggs in my life.
Really?
But I don't rule it out. I mean, especially the sausage rolls, apparently.
Well, maybe you can...
Greggs is selling 1 million sausage rolls a day. Soaring popularity spurred the chain to invest heavily in expansion. But recent slowdown in sales has made analysts question whether the brand has reached a stage where openings are eating into its success?
I think they're right. I think the UK has
As it's
reached
saturated.
peak Greggs. They're
Have you
open-
ever been to a Greggs?
I've been to a few. Yeah, the coffee is fine.
Is it?
but
Fine.
I don't really like the rest. It's cheap.
Right.
It's cheap and pretty consistent,
Right.
which is valuable to an automotive journalist.
Yeah.
But the rest of the food leaves me a little bit cold. But
Really? Have you ever had one of their sausage rolls?
I've had a sausage roll. I've had
'Cause I've heard good things about them.
They're fine. They're fine. I think there's a lot of hype
Right.
because Greggs runs on a hype machine. I did a piece for the Telegraph on Greggs about 3 months ago, and as part of that, I tried sausage rolls. But looking into it, I did a little bit of scratching around, and they spend a lot of time and effort making sure that Greggs is always in the headlines. It's fascinating. They have a news story every couple of days.
They've got Greggs clothing.
They've got Greggs clothing, for example. They have
Yeah.
ironic Greggs Christmas jumpers. They
Yeah.
have weird link-ups with obscure but seemingly very popular with Gen Z musicians. It's all psyops. The whole thing
It's
is
very clever.
It's
for,
really
for
clever
basically a pastry shop.
for basically a shop that sells beige food
Yeah.
for not very much money, and yet it has a cult following that is almost entirely manufactured. I find it really interesting. There's a it really makes me question what is popularity. How much of people's interest in and affection for things is entirely confected by marketing departments and advertising.
Without a doubt. I mean, it's like M&S food,
For example.
isn't it? For example, I mean that is just it's not ordinary food. This is M&S food, so people feel that
Yeah.
sense of luxury
Yeah.
when they go and pay a fiver for what is a
frozen chicken Kiev.
Yeah,
Yeah.
which isn't
Yeah.
not that special.
It's fine.
Some of the foods are nice in that, but it's not that special. But Greggs, yeah. I mean, maybe I should try one before. Go and turn around their financial fortunes. Turn around their financial. You see, the trouble is that the butcher's near me, which is a ginger pig. It's very smart butchers. Can't afford to go in there. You literally have to take out a mortgage to go in there. But they do make sausage rolls there.
Proper ones. A proper sausage roll.
Delicious.
I think Gales
and one
has been
small
demoted.
slice of it is enough to fill you up for the day. They're that good.
I don't believe that for a second.
No, proper.
Are they sort of stocky?
Yeah, well, it's like it'd be like a beef Wellington but sliced.
Oh,
like
I see.
So
Yeah.
you get a slice of sausage roll. It's amazing.
When they're good, they're good.
Yeah, really good. But it's £8 or something.
Oh, really?
Yeah, for one slice.
Gales is a £5, give or take, I think, for a sausage roll.
Gales. Who can afford to go into Gales?
Madeline's in Blackheath. If you're ever in the area, they do a very good sausage roll now.
Okay. Well,
Superior to
I
Gales.
consider myself a bit of a, expert.
Bit of a connoisseur.
Yeah, a bit of a connoisseur. Let's have a look at Metro again. Fans cheer England back after Euros win. So there's holding up the Captain's Cup. Leah Williamson holds a trophy. So that's good for her. The Eye, you can't fake that starvation. I mean, guess who said that?
Yeah.
Donald Trump. Why would you fake that sort of starvation? Trump and UK send new Gaza warning to Israel. But he was saying that they sent $60 million worth of food and nobody said thank you.
No.
Yeah, he
I
did.
mean, somebody probably did.
Probably did.
Yeah.
But they didn't say thank you, apparently.
Yeah.
So, and he says that nobody else has sent them any aid, which isn't true. But everybody I think has agreed now that situation, no matter which side of the politics you're on, has got to stop. The Daily Star. Give Serena and Lionesses gongs. We've got a leader. Now we've got a leader in number 10. Beautiful dame. So there they go. This will brighten up your cabinet. There you go. All the puns there on the front of the Star. And Oasis brother, who, I mean, they all look the same, don't they, these Oasis brothers? This is Paul, the older brother, on a rape rap. And Aussie pal gig was his wake goodbye.
Yes, that was sad. You kind of,
yeah. But I was saying this though last week, as nobody thought that he would live to be 76, right?
No, that's not bad.
Even he didn't.
Because he had accidents. He had.
He was alcoholic problems. He had drugs problems.
Doddery.
And I don't think anybody, least of all him, could imagine living to 76. But
No.
very sad for his family and his fans.
He didn't treat himself with respect.
He did not.
In the 70s and 80s, I
No,
think.
no. They started rerunning the Osbournes
Oh, yeah.
on Netflix. Did you see that? Yeah.
That was one of the sort of original
It
reality.
was. I think it was
That
the
was-
first reality. That's why we've got the Kardashians
Yeah.
now. But yeah, I used to watch that back in the day. It was brilliant.
Yeah. The early
I
2000s,
might watch it
wasn't
again though. I might watch it again.
It was a weird concept at the time.
It was.
But very,
And
very
an
compelling.
absolute bonkers family.
Yeah.
I mean, completely.
Really,
nuts.
really odd.
Very odd.
I don't
but-
know what the
but
kids are doing
compelling.
now.
I think they're doing all right, actually.
Are they just living normal lives?
Yeah, I think so. Relatively.
Relatively, yeah.
Relatively normal, yeah.
Boutique on the King's Road. Sort of thing.
Yeah, not quite that normal. The Daily Telegraph is talking about a drug that could halt the spread of Alzheimer's, which is very exciting. It would be even more exciting if I could read it.
Yeah, very low res.
Very low res. The Telegraph is always appalling.
Yeah,
on the
they don't
print
really
house.
bother. It's like a sort of an old JPEG.
Yeah.
But anyway, it doesn't. We know what it's going to say. It's going to say there are some faraway, promising signs
Yeah.
that this is all going to be brilliant because
in a few years' time.
some mice
Yeah.
did well after they were injected with it, and then it's going to disappear into the ether.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a shame that we can't see it, but hopefully it's a lot sooner than that. Starmer prepares to unveil a plan for recognising the Palestinian state. This won't be a popular move. It's a fairly big issue to do that. France has done it eventually, and
Yeah.
basically that is saying that they recognise a two-state system, which is not what Israel
Yeah.
is currently heading towards with the backing of the US, who Trump has already made it clear that he's
Doesn't, yeah.
is
He
not-
wants to have a hotel on the
on the
Gaza
strip.
Strip. Yeah, I think because he's already said that he will recognise a Palestinian state, but he hasn't yet
He hasn't
recognised
yet.
it, which is a really odd, also an odd thing to do.
I know, and you would think it would be really simple just to say, we recognise that as an independent state.
You need a
but-
plan for it. You
yeah.
need to really think it
But
through.
you have to really, it's incredibly diplomatically
Yeah.
complicated. I was reading into it last week thinking I might need that information one day. And I just thought, God, that is so complicated. Why just not say it?
Yeah.
But you can't. There's
You
lots
can't
of,
just do
no.
that.
No, there's lots of things you've got to go through before you can do that. Quick break, but Ed and I will be back in just a moment.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello, this is Talk, and it is Petrie here with you, and up to the top of the hour is Ed Wiseman. And,
hello.
Ed, I've got a message for you here.
Okay.
Yeah. It says, hi Petrie, I could do with Ed to come and read me a bedtime story every night. He has such a soothing voice.
Fabulous. Is that from someone I know?
That's from Samantha in Lancashire.
Samantha in Lancashire, quite far.
Quite far.
But very nice.
But very nice. I think what she's trying to say is that maybe your voice is boring.
Sure. I think that could be it.
It could be that.
It's amazing that she's made it this far through the show without drifting off, without nodding off into her hot pots. Well, sorry, Samantha, for presumably making you very soporific and very bored.
Very bored.
You know when you do get that feeling, oh goodness me, is that the time?
Is that the time?
I should really go to bed.
You should, but maybe you should do a podcast or something.
And just everybody just out like a light straight away.
Well, you could be the answer
Do you think?
to
I can
people's
cure
insomnia.
people's insomnia by just saying very boring things on the,
It's like when I get messages saying I love falling asleep to you, and I go, not quite the point.
Not really what I'm going for.
Not really what I was aiming
Mind
for.
you, engagement is engagement.
Yeah, I tell you,
As long as you leave the radio on.
it's something.
As long as you leave the stream going, you still count
It's
it.
something, isn't it?
Well, thank you very much, Samantha. That's I think that's kind.
But it's very kind. She meant it kind. It was me that was being rude.
Okay, sure.
It was just me twisting it into a nasty comment.
Get this bloke off the radio. I can't.
The Daily Express for Tuesday. Trump's pretty simple advice for the PM: lower taxes, stop crime, cut illegal migration, and protect farmers.
Yeah. Sounds easy when you say it quick.
It does. It sounds very simple.
It's possibly needs some fleshing out, I would argue.
Possibly, yeah. And you know, I suppose looking at costs, maybe.
Yes.
But he also said, didn't he? Trump said he didn't like Sadiq Khan. He's a very nasty man.
Yeah, he said that earlier.
He's very nasty. He's always hated Sadiq Khan.
Really?
Yeah, and Keir Starmer went, well, he's a friend of mine.
Of course he did. Of course he did. But it seems kind of a slightly obscure figure to hate. If you're Donald Trump, why do you care about the mayor of London?
I don't know. Well, he thinks he's the ruler of the world, doesn't he? And his press secretary said, no, he doesn't think he's the ruler of the world. He's just the ruler of the free world. You go,
sure.
No, he's not the ruler of the free world. He might think he is.
It's a very odd beef that he has with
Sadiq Khan,
but also other people.
Yeah,
random journalists who don't seem to be his greatest enemies. He just
hates them.
Just absolutely.
Well, what about Rosie O'Donnell? Is it O'Donnell? Yeah, Rosie O'Donnell, the comedian.
Yeah,
hates her.
Yeah.
She has been living rent-free in his head for 10 years.
Yeah,
he
which
absolutely hates her.
Really, really was. Because quite sort of not really a big name. Well, maybe over there, I don't know.
Well, she's living in Ireland now with her child.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, but still, it's kind of like, why pick on her? That is a really weird hatred. Yeah. Very strange.
But I mean, does he also have any strong opinions about the mayor of Paris or the mayor of?
I don't know. Suppose he'd know who they are.
No, exactly. But why does he know who Sadiq Khan is?
I don't know.
Because he's not exactly a big. It's not like the mayor of New York has some standing on the international stage.
You'd think, yeah.
But I don't think
Sadiq Khan, Sir
Sadiq Khan.
Sir Sadiq Khan.
I mean, he's just a guy.
Sir Sadiq Khan.
Sir Sadiq Khan. I like that.
Yeah.
Sadiq Khan.
Sadiq Khan.
I mean, honestly, you write anything about you, Les, and they queue up in the comment section below to say more like Sadiq Khan.
Yeah.
And I think it will just never not be funny.
It'll never not be funny, never. And neither will the fact that he's a hypocrite and drives around in two, I think they're 200 grand Range Rovers.
Quite big cars.
Around London with security.
They are ULEZ compliant.
Because it's not safe to go on public transport.
No.
But no, it isn't safe for other people as well, but they don't get two Land Rovers paid for by the taxpayer.
Boris Johnson used to go on. He used to cycle, didn't he?
He used to cycle. And although I had a theory that he'd get driven quite close by and then be dropped off with his bike and then cycle, because he never lost weight.
No.
For somebody who cycled and walked everywhere.
Drinking himself. Maybe he would just get dropped off at the red line and then he'd sort of cycle 100 yards around Parliament Square. And
I was convinced he would do that running as well. When when you see him running,
he did do a bit of sports.
You'd see him. I'm sure he was dropped off just round the corner. and then would just jog into frame.
Yes, he was never particularly out of breath.
No, I think that was a complete con.
Talking of which, did you see the video of Trump cheating at golf?
No.
Yeah, one of his caddies chipped a ball and just out
in Scotland.
I assume so. Could be wrong about where it was. It might have been a surfaced clip from back in the day. I only saw it fleetingly, but yeah, one of his caddies just gave it a bit of a nip back onto the out the
apparently
rough.
whenever he plays at his own golf courses, he wins.
Yeah,
and I think that other people have.
Some people have said that he egregious cheat at golf.
Yeah.
Just brazen, which is particularly odd. I thought that to me the whole point of golf is not that.
It's
the one
not
thing
to
it
cheat.
has going for it is that you sort of
you play against yourself.
Yeah,
right.
kind of.
Yeah.
You don't really do that because it's
I think it's I mean it's not really a great surprise that he cheats. Really.
No, somehow it does fit the bill in a slightly sort of Burns from The Simpsons sort of way. It's really odd.
Yeah. But he plays a lot of golf. A lot of golf.
It's amazing to think it can capture his imagination so much.
Yeah.
I find it quite dull as a thing.
Good walk ruined.
Yeah, precisely. Not even a particularly good walk. 'Cause it's just on, But yeah, I think different strokes for different folks. Obviously.
I'll have to look up that.
It was doing the rounds this morning.
Yeah.
I don't know, just lame.
Lame. Pathetic. Just play the game, and if you lose, you lose, and get better.
But it wasn't him. It was one of his staff. I don't really know very much about golf, but they just sort of knocked it.
Because he would have had a tantrum if.
Yeah,
perhaps.
or maybe they just wanted to get it over with. Maybe he's just been sort of putting it around for the past hour. You just think, for heaven's sake, I need the loo. I want to go home.
Yeah. Security team need a cup of tea. The Mirror, again, going big on the Lionesses. And then in honour of Barney and Grace, tears flowed at the graduation ceremonies held yesterday for murdered Barnaby Webber and Grace O'Malley Kumar, after brave Charlie Webber, 17, collected his brother's honorary degree at Nottingham University. Oh, their parents urged graduates to raise a glass to Barney. So he would have been graduating.
How old was he when he was killed?
He must have been 17, 18 when he was killed. First year of uni.
Yeah, he must have just been 18. Yeah, 18. I suppose. I don't think.
Really sad.
That feels like years ago now.
It really does. But siblings' bravery amid the unimaginable pain at graduation ceremonies for Nottingham victims. And those lovely young people. It's a terrible waste. And the Sun newspaper, again, strong and victorious on the steps of number 10, the Lion Ladies. Why would you call them the Lion Ladies? That's rubbish.
Because the Mirror and the Star had taken all the good stuff.
Maybe Iron Ladies.
Yeah,
that was Sam's suggestion. I think you're probably right, Sam. The mighty Lionesses, the pride of the nations, they stand outside number 10. There you go. The Guardian, again, half the page given to the football.
Yep. Which is good, I think.
Which is good, because they would if it was the men. It would be the whole page.
Yeah, at least. Than the first 6 pages.
It's more unusual for the men to bring a trophy home.
Yes, true. It would be a real red-letter day.
The Guardian, again, Trump urges Israel to let food aid into Gaza to tackle real starvation. But I think that they've already called a sort of little ceasefire to get some aid in.
Yeah, a few hours a day, isn't it?
Yeah, a few hours a day.
Who knows whether that will be sustained?
Do you know, I think that the world now has just seen, like it doesn't matter what side of the politics you're on, this kind of cruelty is just not acceptable.
Yeah.
And I think that any sort of sympathies that Israel may have garnered from the October 7 attacks, they're in danger of losing, because two wrongs don't make a right. Okay, this is not okay. This is not okay, even if you believe, in a one-state solution, or you believe in the sanctity and safety. This is still not okay. And I think that uniformly, the world is saying, come on.
Enough of that.
That's not okay anymore. That's not good. And then the Daily Mail, just talking about Trump's brilliant ideas for seeing off Farage. There you go.
Yes, beautiful. The best ideas.
Best
I'm
ideas,
sure.
the bigliest ideas.
The bigliest ideas. Yeah. I mean, do you have really simple ideas for staving off Farage? What would your advice be for?
Vote for somebody else.
Just vote for somebody else.
Ed, thank you. That is
Thank
my
you.
simple idea. Ed Wiseman, thank you very much indeed. Travel and transport journalist there. Now, coming up, it's just you and me, and I want to talk to you about what I think is the biggest crisis in this country at the moment, and that is housing. And I think that affordable, decent housing is really at the root of so many other issues that if we could just solve that, then other things would fall into place. What do you think? Let's talk about housing and what is truly affordable housing. What would you be able to really afford with a mortgage? Let me know.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Good morning. It is Talk and it is Petrie here with you for the next hour. And what I want to talk about really is a bugbear of mine. It's something that I am acutely aware of and think about quite a lot. And that is the lack of availability for all people for decent, affordable, properly affordable houses, homes, places to live. And I think the reason that I take this so personally in a way is because I know how much I value my front door. I know how much I value my home, wherever I've made that home, how important it is for my sense of security, for my sense of safety, for my mental health, for everything, is to have my own home. And I have been fortunate enough to do that. And I know that is a thing because when I was buying my first home, you could I mean, basically you could lie about your income, your self-certificate, whatever it's called, self-certification. Do you remember that? We could say, oh yeah, I'm on this amount of money, or I'm on, and nobody checked. It was really easy to get a mortgage. It was affordable to be able to buy your first property, all of those things, and that is no longer the case. It just is not the case anymore. So any of us older people who sit there going, oh, why don't they just work harder and stop having avocado on toast? It isn't that anymore. We were lucky. We had it easy, let me tell you. Today, rents are unaffordable. I don't know how people can even rent in a city or a town in comparison to their wages. I don't know how people can even get the deposit together. So, you know, can pay the deposit and then a month's wait, you know, on top of that. And in some cases, in sort of high impact areas, people are being asked to pay 6 months in advance or even a year in advance. I mean, if it's a year in advance, you're looking at, in London, for a 2-bed, you're looking at 25 grand. Who's got that just knocking about in their bank accounts, right? And even just if it's a month, that's still, you're looking at 5 grand with your deposit and your first month in advance. So that you're looking at £5,000. How many people, how many young people can afford to save that amount of money to even get a rental? And then, you know, they need a guarantor, almost entirely a guarantor. I've had to be a guarantor for my son, who's not a baby anymore. He's a working man. He's 28 years old, and I still have to have he still has to have a guarantor. And the guarantor is put through the ringer. I mean, the whole system is against independence. The whole system is rigged against all of you to be able to even get renting, let alone to buy somewhere. And this term, affordable housing, 80% of market value. Affordable rent, 80% of market rent. That's still 20 grand a year. That's still a fortune. So how does anybody do it? And what I want to know, because of this I mean, I know it drives me nuts, right? And all governments do it. Oh, we're going to build all this affordable housing. Affordable for who? Genuinely, affordable for who? Wherever it is that you live in this country, can you afford what is 80% of market value? 80%, it's not 50%, it's 80%. Could you still afford that, even if you could find it? The only truly affordable housing, affordable and safe housing, is social housing, where you can get in there and you know what's going to happen to your rent year on year. You know how much it's going to go up by. It's not some private landlord who just wants to make an extra bit of cash. You know that you probably can stay there as long as you behave yourself and all of that kind of stuff. I know there are contracts and you have to, you know, agree to certain behaviours and things, but that's fine. That you and your family can grow there, knowing what your rent is going to be. And we've lost, in the last few decades, 1.5 million social homes. So this government is talking about building 1.5 million new homes by the end of this parliament. It's just not possible. It's not going to happen. They're going to woefully miss that. But what kind of homes are they building? They're talking about a percentage of them being affordable. But again, I ask the question, affordable to who? And they're talking about a tiny percentage of social homes, which I believe are the only truly affordable homes for everybody. And at the moment, you've got young people having to live with their parents, never growing up. They haven't got the opportunity to go and move to a big city and try out their luck there and have an adventure and do something different. No wonder young people are signing on and are opting out of society. No wonder. I literally don't blame them. I don't condone it, but I don't blame them. I feel sorry for them. The social contract is gone. The social contract which reads, if you work hard and you take part in society, you can achieve these things. You can achieve owning a house. You can achieve having a family. That's the social contract. You play your part and society will play its part. You'll get your own property, you'll have kids, whatever. And now you've got young people looking into the future and saying, I'm never going to own a house. I'm never going to have kids. What's the point? What's the point? And I agree with them. What's the point? Unless you've got rich parents. What are you going to do? There is no way out of this if we don't start building. And by building, I mean building the proper homes, the right kind of homes, 1-bedroom, 2-bedroom properties, as well as houses. So that older people and younger people, one can downsize, the other can get onto the ladder. We're not building them. But according to Keir Starmer, our Prime Minister, we've got enough housing. For people who are homeless, we've got enough housing for them and asylum seekers. In fact, last week he was asked in a liaison committee meeting what other accommodation precisely was he talking about. The government are planning to take over to provide temporary accommodation for families. Where is this stuff?
Lots of housing in many local authorities that can be used, and we're identifying where it can be used. But I mean, look.
Well, sorry, could you give us? Have you got any examples you can give us?
No, but I'll write in and give you details.
Because I could say certainly in a number of our local authorities, already picking up from around the table, there isn't a lot of spare housing available. If there were, councils would be able to be dealing with it by now.
Well, exactly.
Well, what planet is this man on? She just said, all of the councils sitting around this table, there is no spare capacity. Well, yeah, well, exactly. Having just declared there's enough housing. So, I want to know, what is an affordable home for you? Whether it's rental or it's buying it. Because I don't recognise that term in terms of renting. You know, a fifth of tenants are saying that they're spending over half of their take-home salary on rent. Over half on rent. And then, of course, you've got council tax and you've got your bills and then hopefully some food on top of that. And then you're left with nothing. Over half of your take-home pay going on rent. That's not sustainable, and rent's going up by £2,500 a year on average, on top of what you're paying at the moment. £2,500. That's 221 quid a month that you've suddenly got to find. And if we could have affordable, properly affordable, not the way governments say affordable, but properly affordable housing, that would make a dent in mental health issues, it would make a dent in youth unemployment, it would make, I mean, all of the things that you can see would stem back from just being able to live in a decent, I'm not talking a palatial, I'm talking about a decent, no damp, 1-bedroom flat for a young person. Then they would be encouraged to go to work, to pay their bills, they would be encouraged to get a job, they'd be encouraged to get out, they'd be encouraged to take part in society. I don't think it's rocket science. I really don't. And then you've got people as they get older, couples wanting to buy, make it affordable so that they can dream about perhaps having a family, which we desperately need. We've got an ageing population. We haven't got enough children being born. That's the answer to that. Less pressure on the NHS, less loneliness, less all sorts of things, from the basic tenant, excuse the pun, of everybody having somewhere they could afford to live, that they would want to live in. Just your basic, decent accommodation. If you can't even get that, what's the point? What's the point of joining in with society if society isn't going to help you with anything? Sarah's in Liverpool. Hi, Sarah.
Good evening, Petrie.
Hi, how are you?
Not too bad, thanks. How's yourself?
Yeah, not too bad for a Tuesday now. I was going to say Monday. It's Tuesday. What do you make of this?
Affordable housing. That is the biggest joke I've ever heard. It's also the biggest oxymoron there is in the OED. Because, I mean, there's been quite a bit of so-called affordable modern housing built not far from where I live all around, and there's plenty of bomb sites in Liverpool even now, and they're still building on them. And I've seen the way they're built, and it's disgusting. I mean, I've got cousins and friends who work who are either building engineers, surveyors, and also on the tools as well, plasterers, chippies, brickies, all the rest of it. And every one of them I've spoken to, and other people besides who were in the construction game, they've said that these houses, they wouldn't even put their name to them. They shame them when they have to build them. I mean, you take a look at any of them. They've got a concrete pad. There's a wooden frame. Then, for the walls, you have a sheet of basically plywood, WBP board. Then, what looks like, to the untrained eye, glorified tinfoil, which is some form of insulation. Then, you've got wadding to try and keep the heat in. Then you've got another layer of the glorified tinfoil, then another layer of plywood, and then plasterboard. The outside, if you are very lucky, and this is if you are very lucky, you may actually get bricks. I mean, it's a shock when you actually see someone lay a brick. 9 times out of 10, it's what I would call photocopy bricks, which is like brick tile.
Yeah.
Made to look like bricks. The roof tiles, they're not proper slate. They're not even reconstituted concrete. They are 9 times out of 10 plastic. And these houses, they call affordable at about £100,000. I look at them and go, apart from the fact that I know, and my friends and family know, who are in the business, that these houses are built to fail. The other thing is, they're about as safe as Grenfell Tower. Because they're all made of, there's not one bit of non-flammable material in them. Because when they've boarded them out inside, there isn't a proper wall, like the old terraced houses. There used to be brick walls in between, so if there was a fire, they wouldn't spread over.
Yeah.
These, there was a fire in one house. It was not far from where I live. It affected the whole of the block. 4 houses they were all affected and went up in flames. People have only just got back in them now. And I'm looking at them going, these are not affordable. They're a fool's errand. And apart from anything else, I wouldn't want, if someone offered me one for free, I wouldn't go and live in them because they are so unsafe because of all the rubbish that's in them. There's not, as I said, they're not flammable. They are not.
Yeah, I mean, it used to be, these houses were always built with that in mind, weren't they? I mean, even the Victorians, I suppose, because there was, in Victorian times where a lot of these terraces were built, that it was open fires and open candles and things like that. So they were mindful of the fact that these fires had to stop the spread from house to house.
That was it.
So they were built in such a way that even attic spaces had to have the brick walls and fire breaks, if you like.
That was it. That was the way they were built. But now, especially in the last 15, 20 years, anyone who ever finds a copy of Safer's Houses about what goes on in the building business and also with social housing, especially since Grenfell, and also the fact that, if memory serves me correct, Cameron basically let it be a free-for-all when it comes to, you can put anything into these houses. And this is why we're seeing the problems, especially with the modern housing. The other thing is, apart from the fact they're about as flammable as a nylon shirt, the other thing is as well, they're not built to last. These houses are only made to last about 20 years tops. I mean, there was one lot that's built not far away from where I live, about half a mile away. And I've seen the way they've degraded over the last 10 years. And I'm thinking, these are going to fall down, and people have paid good money for them. They've paid.
I mean, I see that as well. You often see that with properties, and you just think, crikey, those are not built. They're not built to last. I mean, even the prefabs, right, that went up in places like London and Liverpool after the Second World War, and Coventry and all those places that were bombed, those prefabs are still standing.
They are.
And they're still being lived in. I mean, they were meant to last only about 10 years. I don't know why we're not doing a modern version of prefabs now that you could get houses that are kit form, right, from all sorts of countries, and they can be built in days.
The thing is, the reason why they won't do it is because the government thinks it'd be more expensive to do it that way. They go, oh, it's expensive because I mean I know quite a few people who still live in the old prefabs because there's a whole road of them.
Yeah.
Just north of just to the south of West Derby, and they're freezing cold because they're made of concrete and tin. They have been improved over the years. The councils have had to do it, and anyone who's bought them knows that they're non-standard construction. So you have to make sure that they're fireproof and everything else, especially if you're renting them out. And they've lasted for nearly 70-odd years. Yeah,
they were meant to only be there for 10, 15 years, weren't they, if that.
But the thing is, you take a look at them and you take a look at the Victorian terraces, especially in a lot of the places like London and Liverpool, and in the areas where they did get a hell of a lot of bombing. I mean, I know the house I live in actually has still got bomb damage. I'll be honest, twisted joists and all kinds, but it's still standing, which is more than what I can say if the puff of wind came along with these modern houses.
Yeah,
they just, I mean, when you see some of them, I mean, they're just, even with a bad, we get plenty of wind in Liverpool, as anyone who's ever visited the place knows. We call it a breeze. Anyone else would call it a hurricane. And I've seen these houses, their slates are slightly off the roof, and this, that, and all kinds of problems. But the old terraced houses, the Victorian, the Georgian, even the houses, the old 1930s and 1950s semis that were built before and after the war, they're still standing and they're still solid.
I mean, and all the technology that we've developed since Victorian time, you would imagine that we would be building better houses, not worse houses than our Victorian ancestors. I just think it's really, it is a crisis point now, Sarah, that the housing is so appalling in this country, and it has to be fixed. It has to be. This is the root of a lot of problems in this country, is the lack of affordable, truly affordable, decent housing. It shouldn't be that difficult, really. We can throw billions at HS2 to end up with half a train track, and the trains going no faster than they would have gone anyway, so it's slow speed too, and still have spent tens of billions of pounds on that. Ridiculous. What a waste. Sarah, thank you. Quick break. Back in a sec.
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello there, this is Talk and it is Petrie with you, and we're discussing the housing crisis in this country after our Prime Minister, Sir Keir Starmer, seemed to think there's plenty to go around. Plenty to go around. But there isn't. We know that. And a lot of people live it. There are many people on waiting lists. I've got the numbers here. 1.3 million households in England were on local authority housing lists at the last count, the highest figure since 2014. About 164,000 children live in temporary accommodation. The average rent increases in the private sector recently hit a record high of 9.2%. Figures just released by the Home Builders Federation show that the number of new homes given planning consent in England in the first quarter of 2025 was the lowest since 2012. Something partly blamed on the absence of any government support scheme for first-time buyers. The market for homes for people can buy remains a byword for exclusion and impossibility, which is why those new apartment blocks are always such a dependable symbol of fury and frustration. Of course they are, because you're told that they're building affordable homes. But I say again, affordable to who? For who? Who can afford them? Who can afford them? I don't know. Got a message here from Rachel. She said, housing in this country is a joke, and Starmer's recent comment proves what an absolute fool he is. I've struggled with my mental health all of my adult life. I've always rented and there's no security in it, and it's significantly impacted my mental health. I'm now fortunate enough to have a social housing flat, and my mental health has never been more stable. Exactly what I was saying. But watching immigrants go to the top of the social housing list is simply not acceptable. I waited for over 20 years. And just to clarify, what it will be is a local authority has been told they've got to house people, and it's according to need. So if it's an immigrant with children and you don't have children, they will always be at the top of the list. It's not simply because they're immigrants, it's because that the housing association, whoever it is, the council, have a priority list. So if it's a family, they will get priority over you as not being a family. Even if, you know, like you said, you waited for 20 years. And that's what people find incredibly unfair. And I completely understand that. I get it. I really do get it. Kaz said, I moved into a housing association home 8 years ago. The job centre pay the rent, but I have to pay £200 council tax a month while living on £370 as universal credit a month for all the other bills and food. How am I supposed to live if I paid that in full? There's just no way, is there? And this is what I'm talking about. There's just... we don't have a shortage of housing, just an overpopulation of legal and illegal migrants and a massive wall of riches from overseas. And that's Andrea from Coventry. There's definitely an overpopulation issue when it comes to the undersupply of housing. There's no question about that. I'm not going to argue with that at all. And yeah, you have all those rich people buying properties in the UK and never living in them, barely even ever renting them out. So yeah, we do. We should be banning that, because that would drive the price down if there weren't all these sort of Chinese investors and Russian investors and people from all over the world who just want a slice of London because they know the prices are going to go up. I mean, there are whole tower blocks in West London where there's not a single light on at night, and yet they're fully occupied. The same in round areas like in Battersea and areas like that. Entire tower blocks of properties that have been bought by investors and nobody's living in them. You can tell because there is not a single light on, ever. So, and they're sold out. So that's also driving the price up, which is not good. not good for any of us, and it should be banned. But of course the housing companies don't want it banned. Nobody else wants it banned because they all make money. Tristan is in Bedford. Hello, Tristan. How's Bedford?
Not too bad, Petrie.
Good, glad to hear it. Right, so tell me about rents and affordability.
Well, where I do live in a nice part of Bedford, but I pay a decent whack of money for that. But as I was saying to your researcher, you know, I can't just rely on my normal full-time income. I have to have another income as well, because I have to put money away for my pension, pay the ridiculously high energy bills, and obviously food and all the other council tax and all the other stuff that you have to pay for.
So are you living in a mansion?
No, I'm living in a two-bedroom house.
A two-bedroom house in a nicer part of Bedford. Is it the part that I'm thinking of?
I don't know. Do you know Bedford quite well?
Castle Quarter.
Riverfield Drive.
So is that down by the river?
Yes.
Yeah.
Not a bit further on from the river, but it is a nice area.
Yeah. Yeah. There's some really pretty areas around there.
£1,400 a month for a two-bedroom house.
What?
Yeah. Now, when I moved to Bedford in 2020, I had a three-bedroom house, and that was £1,000 a month. That rent was going up again, upwards over £1,500 last year. 2 years ago, and I had to move out because it was just untenable. So we moved here, and the rent was £1,100, and the rent has gone up, and now it's £1,400.
Are you expecting it to go up again?
Probably, yeah. I probably am expecting it to go up again because of, you know, supply and demand, isn't it? It's supply and demand at the end of the day. So you sort of have to grin and bear it, as they say, I suppose.
And so you've had to get you've had to get a second job.
I do some work on. I do some work on the side.
Right. And how much of your income do you think is just the costs for the house? So you've got your council tax, rent.
Council tax is 175, and as I said, the rent is 1,400. I pay half, and my ex-partner, who I still live with, she pays half, so we pay half of that ourselves. And then we have the energy between 200 and 300 a month.
And ideally, would you be sharing with your ex-partner?
Yeah, we get on very, very well.
Oh, okay. Wow. Okay.
We do get on. We do. I don't know. We you know, certain things didn't work out when we was get a lot of pressures and stuff during COVID and everything, but we still care about each other and that and stuff. So, you know.
That's lucky.
Yeah.
Hey.
Well, if I wasn't living with her when we did split up, when I had a stomach blockage, I probably wouldn't be here now.
Wow.
So I have a lot to thank her for in that sense.
And is there any way you could afford to live where you live on your own?
Not where I live here, no. Not where I live here. It's too much with everything else. I mean, the thing is where we lived previously, the energy bills, were quite expensive, but it hasn't really reduced living here. The problem is the energy bills just keep going up. And the thing is, when it comes to house building, they've got so much regulation, especially when it comes to our net zero commitments. It makes things even more difficult. So people are you're sort of strained to what they actually can do, because they have to adhere to so many ridiculous regulations, all down to net zero. So any new properties all have to adhere to certain conditions. I mean, I work for an energy company, and every new house, has solar panels. A lot of them have to have air source heat pumps and things like that. And all of that has to adhere to certain regulations. But obviously a lot of properties can't, it wouldn't be viable for them to have air source heat pumps or solar panels or anything like that. So a lot of it doesn't make any sense. And obviously what our idiot Prime Minister said, I mean, he just basically lied to lied to everyone saying what he said, which was just absolutely ridiculous.
It's ridiculous. I mean, it is just so foolhardy. I don't know why you would say that, because it is obviously not true, right? It's not even an accident. That is just a complete lie. Or whether he was told that, you know, there's all these houses available, I don't know, but that is just obviously not true. Otherwise, we wouldn't be having these conversations.
I mean, the thing is, eventually, he you know, the chickens will come home to roost eventually. It's just a case of what will happen when it hits the limit. If we have to go to the IMF or whatever like that. But the housing situation, I mean, you know, the main thing is obviously we've got so many people coming into the country, and they're being propped up into hotels, and then they're talking about them obviously going into private housing. Now, the thing is, if someone goes into private housing, are they going to be working, paying everything? I mean, I don't get.
Well, they'll get. No, they will get. They will. I mean, presumably they would get housing benefits, but not only that, but that is a supply and demand issue, that even if they go into private housing, then that reduces the amount of private rents there are, which pushes up the rent for everybody else like you and my son.
Absolutely, and that's the thing. And the problem is, it just keeps increasing. I mean, I go back to when I came back from America back in 2008. I had a 2-bedroom house in Luton, and I was paying $580 a month.
That's more like it, isn't it?
Yeah, fast forward that nearly 15, 20 years, and I'm paying $1,400 a month.
Yeah, you're paying. It's 3 times the amount. I don't know. Honestly, I despair, and this is why I said that I have no issue with seeing why young people just don't want to be part of society. Because if that's what we're offering them, what's the point?
Well, it becomes, the thing is, it's near enough unsustainable now, but it's getting more unsustainable.
It's getting worse and worse.
I don't know how people can actually do it. To be honest,
I don't either, Tristan. And I really think that so many of the problems in this country will be sorted if we just sorted out the housing crisis. And it is such a crisis, and I don't know why this government is not paying attention to what is actually really, truly going on in the world. Good to talk to you, Tristan. Thank you very much indeed for your call. I've got to take a break. Back in a sec.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hi there, good morning. It's Petrie here with you until the top of the hour. A couple more messages that I want to read out from Joanna. She says, I'm actually trapped. I can't downsize. The government has made it impossible. By the time I pay for capital gains tax, stamp duty and legal fees, and nothing would fit in a new, smaller house. It would actually cost me more to move than to stay where I am. How ridiculous is that? I mean, it is ridiculous. It is so expensive to move. It really is. You've got to set aside a decent wedge of money. A lot of people don't have it. Heather said, affordable housing doesn't exist. It's a fantasy, a dream. Everybody dreams about living in a home that they can afford, and the politicians are living in a dream world. Why don't they understand it, though? Why don't they get it? Why don't they understand that affordable isn't what they think it is? I mean, all they have to do is give me a call. I'll talk them through it. I mean, it's not that difficult. Paul is in Bolton. Hello, Paul.
Hiya, Petrie.
How are you doing?
Hiya, not too bad, are you?
Good, I'm all right. Yeah, I'm a bit annoyed by this, but there you go.
There's lots to be annoyed about things like this, isn't there? But yeah, I was just ringing, and obviously the question I've been watching on YouTube, and the question on YouTube, it says what is affordable housing nowadays, and I'd say for people who haven't got a mortgage, I mean, that's probably not affordable for many people either, but it's social housing, and we've just not got any, we've just got not nearly enough social housing. So like I said, some of it is part of the problem of governments dating back to Mrs Thatcher, because while it was nice for her to sell the houses to people, there should have been more built, as you know.
They should have been replaced, like, you know, like for like, yeah.
Yeah, they should have been replaced. That's the issue with it. It isn't so much them giving people a chance to buy the houses. It's not replacing them, because the whole point of social housing is it's cheap rented accommodation, you know, for people. And like I said, there's just not enough. I hear people saying, oh, I'll be on this waiting list for that length of time, and I'll be on this waiting list for that length of time. Maybe if you've got children or mental health, you get bumped up the list. And again, the housing association, I think that's lacking. And the problem is private rentals just got completely out of control. I mean, I've been in 2 private rentals. I've been in house shares as well years ago. I mean, that might be an option for me in the future, to be going back in house shares in my late 40s, early 50s, but because I didn't get on the mortgage ladder, but when I should have. But basically, yeah, private rental. I was in a little granny, I called it a granny studio, because it was like a little granny flat on the main block of flats, and it was still a studio, and I used to pay $400 for that. I moved in about 20 years ago, 2005, and I pretty much paid for $390, $400 till I left in 2014, which isn't bad, because I was in West Didsbury, which is quite affluent, you know, in South Manchester, and I managed to live there in this little granny studio hidden in this garden. But then when I came back here to where I grew up in Bolton West, I got in a 2-bedroom house with a garden and garage, and we got the landlord down to $450, and that was for like a year contract. He initially wanted a bit more for 6 months, but we said, well, I'll stay a year. And again, that was $450 for quite a while, until about 2-3 years ago. Then he bumped it up to, all on the back of COVID and cost of living and all these things, but then he bumped it up to $491, I think it was, and $650, and then $700 in about 2 to 3 years. And it's just crazy. And I've been at a bit of a crossroads in my life with my own mental health in recent years, so I'll admit I've not been working in recent years, and relying on housing benefit till I moved back in with my mum last year. But basically, housing benefit in places like Bolton, it's just not matching up anymore, because, like I said, it still wasn't enough even when I was paying $450. You usually get about £400 in places like Bolton, then you have to make up the shortfall, and I'm just lucky I've got parents that have got a little bit of money here and there, do you know what I mean? But when it got to $700, it just got ridiculous, because the government don't realise that when you're living in places like Bolton and Wigan now, rents are about $700 as well as they used to be in Manchester, and obviously they're probably even dearer in Manchester and London now. But so you've got £200 or £300 shortfalls, and regardless of what people think, people still need a roof over their head, and that housing benefit should match your rent. There shouldn't be any shortfall, do you know what I mean? But at the same time, they need to be curbing landlords and stopping them putting up the rents to such ridiculous prices, do you know what I mean?
I completely agree. I think there should be caps on rental, although that's been now absolutely that's not going to happen. You know, governments have always said no, we can't really, that stifles, you know, market, blah blah blah. But the problem is that where you've got a lack of supply, then this is what's forcing the private rents up is a lack of social housing. We're 1.5 million social houses short that were sold off, demolished, got rid of, whatever, and were never replaced. Councils were allowed not to replace them, which I think was a fundamental mistake. They should have been told, once you've sold a property, you have to build one, and it's as simple as that. No questions, nothing. You've just got to do it. If you're going to sell, you've got to build, or you can't sell. And it was never done. And so we were 1.5 million social homes down. If we had those social homes now, rents would be lower. They just would be lower because people could choose then. There would be an actual choice between a social home or a housing association or whatever and private rental. But there's no choice now. It's private rental or back to your mum.
And what annoys me is, obviously, during COVID, they got everyone off the streets, didn't they, pretty much? Yeah. God forbid anyone was on the streets during the summer of COVID when it was red hot. But obviously, ever since, I've seen loads of people back on the streets. So why weren't then people kept in accommodation permanently? You've got tons of empty buildings, you know, various buildings that could be made into something. And another thing...
Because it's the people having it follow the money. There's no money in it. You know, that's the capitalist world, isn't it? I mean, I believe capitalism is the best of all of the systems that are available to us. But it's gone a bit wrong, right? It's just like money is the only thing now.
But even with private rentals, when landlords say, well, enough's enough, I've had enough of that, and some are doing now, rather than build a new house, why don't the government just buy that back, you know, because that would be easier than just building a new house, you know, and then they can put it as a social house or housing association maybe, which is sort of a bit higher up the ranking than social housing, and then they will eventually make money back. But as I say, it's just... regardless of what people think about people not working, and like I say, lots of people can't always help it, the fact that housing benefit doesn't even match up to what rents are becoming towns like Bolton and Wigan, where houses aren't considered as expensive. You know?
Yeah, you would think that would be cheaper, and therefore that the benefit would cover it. But
no, it didn't even cover it when the rent was cheaper. But this conversation, we've had conversations like this a million times in the public eye and on phone-ins and that, and you think to yourself, oh, I hope someone who really needs to hear this is listening, but you just think, even though it's great what you're doing with this hour's conversation, you just think it's just going to fall on deaf ears. And every party, well, a lot of the parties, I won't include the Greens because they've never really had enough power to be criticised in that way, but a lot of these parties, there's Reform, there's Labour, Conservative, Liberal Democrat, they've all had a whiff of power, we have a good gist of what they're about, and they're all for us working class people in places like Bolton, but they're never really for us when it comes to things like us needing housing.
No.
You know what I mean? They're just... And Nigel Farage will be no different. And
no different. Because actually, I mean, like I've been saying, you sort out the housing crisis and you give people decent places to live. Suddenly mental health is improved, people are going back to work, you know, people are engaged in society, people want to be part of society because they've got a stake in it, you know, they feel independent. It's solved so many problems, but they don't see it as that. They just see...
sorry to interrupt, but we need. I've been looking at these places where now they have you've probably seen it flash up on social media somewhere yourself, where they have these smaller houses, more like one room spaces, you know, and they've got them in Finland and places to help people out, and We probably need a lot of them, at least for
I
the
agree.
short term.
Yeah,
You know,
I
just
totally
to get
agree. Those
people-
almost prefabs, and they're perfect. These little the tiny houses they're called, aren't they? And they're absolutely brilliant. I'd want to live in one actually. I think they're great. Paul, great to talk to you. I've got to go because I've just got to take a very quick break before the end of the show. But no, I agree. For many, the only affordable housing is social housing.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello there, it is Talk, and it's Petrie here with you until the top of the hour, and we are talking about the housing crisis, although our Prime Minister appears to be unaware that such a thing exists. He appears to think there's lots of housing available for both the homeless and for asylum seekers. I don't know where he's looking. In fact, when he was asked where this housing might possibly be, he didn't know. And he was told by councils, look, we haven't got capacity. We haven't got any housing. So, you know, look, I know that he's completely out of step with this. I know he is. You've got over 1 million people, 1.3 million people waiting for social housing on the lists, waiting for years and years and years, sometimes decades. This is interesting. Somebody called Gen X sent me this a little while ago and saying, here's my rental estimate if I should offer it. And it's one of those, it looks like a Zoopla form that you fill in to say what kind of property you would want, probably 1 bedroom, 2 bedroom, whatever, and what that you'd be looking at in your area in terms of rent, right? And Gen X goes on to say, who could afford this in the South Wales Valley? So this is in South Wales, and the rental is £2,000 a month. And this person goes on to say, my mortgage is £615 per month. And yet, if they were renting, it would be £2,000 per month. I mean, explain that. I can't explain that. Why the disparity? Why is that so big? That has just got to be money making, right? That's I don't know, supply and demand, like I said, and profiteering. There's got to be. £615 to £2,000 if they were to rent the property. Extraordinary. And then we have a message here from Ernie. Ernie says, "Hi Petrie, I work in construction. There is no such thing as affordable housing. The cost of building materials and labour are through the roof, pardon the pun. You would be lucky to build a basic 2-bedroomed house now for less than £150,000. But that's just the tip of the iceberg. When you factor in the ridiculous council tax rates, the water rates, all of these things going up, of course, the heating, the buildings insurance, the personal fire and theft insurance, and then you've got to furnish it. Nobody who's a first-time buyer could ever afford it. They just don't earn enough to pay all of that and live a comfortable life with treats, the occasional holidays. It just isn't possible." And that's a very good point, actually. So thank you, Ernie. A very good message. I like that a lot. So Linda says it's greedy landlords and immigration are the root of the housing problem. Many properties have been turned into HMOs, and those that haven't are taken before they're even advertised. I had agreed to take a property at the asked for rental, and someone came along offering £100 per month more, so I was let down. That's the other thing, is this gazumping that goes on in the private rental markets. It's absolutely disgusting. Paul is in Wolverhampton. Paul, good morning to you. Is there a housing crisis in this country?
Oh, God, Petrie, good morning. How are you?
I'm very well. How are you?
I'm all right, thank you. Yeah, I'm good. There is, basically, Petrie, I live in a housing association. Now, I've been in and out of work for the last year due to circumstances. Anyway, I've changed my job.
Right.
As I told you. And I was having universal credit as well as working. And then they came along and I sent all my bank details. I had an ISA, a private pension that was frozen. And then they came back at me and I had to pay back £1.5 grand. Can you believe it? Because I was just over the limit. I've just had to reapply. Now, my new job is working with autistic children, looking after really poorly children. So, of course, I'm on an agency which is going to take me through to being full-time at the school. But, of course, what have we hit now? The 6 weeks holidays, so I don't get any income. So I've had to go to them and say, look, I'm not getting any money. I've had to show them all the money that I've used, everything that I've bought, everything I've paid for. I mean, I pay ground rent, I pay council tax, I pay gas, electric, and I've had to use basically half of my ISA that I've saved up for my life to live on. And on top of that, my mum and dad, bless them, my dad is giving me money like for my groceries to help me get through. And I'm thinking, I have paid into this system all my life since the age of 16, and you're penalising me. And I know exactly why it's being done. It's to pay for other people that are coming into this country to subsidise them, and it's just so annoying.
I mean, that is... so they don't recognise that working in a school you wouldn't get paid for 6 weeks until you're staff, right? Because you're agency.
I'm actually taken on as a contract because I'm agency, but I've been told I will be eventually.
Of course you will.
It's like the agency, they would have to pay a fee to the agency to get me out that contract. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like... It's a funny one, but the housing in Wolverhampton, if they open up somewhere or they do something, it's just filled with immigrants. I've got to be honest, it is, Petrie, and I don't like to say it because I know it's a sore subject with everybody, but that is exactly what's happening.
Well, I mean, there's no question that immigration has put pressure on supply. There's literally no question about that. We've got an extra 700,000 people a year. Where if they're going to be housed, then those are properties that aren't available to everybody else. It's undoubted. Even just in pure economics, of course that's going to put pressure on supply in areas. That's just obvious. But it doesn't. But again, it's not. It doesn't. It's not the right vibe, is it? It's not the right look for a council to be doing that.
No, actually, you need to run for Prime Minister of the country. You really do. put my tick in that box within seconds. You'd be,
Bless you. You'd be absolutely
honestly,
wrong to, because I'd be
I know.
totally corrupt.
Because it's like everybody I speak to, when you speak to them now, you say about what's going on in the world, and they'll go, well, I voted so-and-so, and it's like...
They don't get it. I don't understand why this government, a Labour government, is not understanding the situation that we're in. I really don't. I mean, it's kind of, it's like I'm in a fantasy world where I can see stuff, but they can't. And I'm thinking, well, how can I see it? I'm not even that bright, and I can see what's going on, and they can't. Keir Starmer thinks there's enough housing for everybody.
God. Do you know what somebody said to me